Good evening. I would like to call to order the Town of Cohasset Conservation Meeting. Today is October 8th, 2020. The time is 6:30 and we are holding the meeting remotely via the Zoom platform. In attendance this evening is, read the names, Angela Giso, Conservation Administrator, Jeff Summers, Conservation Agent, Kathy Berrigan, Eric Eisenhower, Patricia Grady, Chris McFarlane, James Rosebach, Marianne Weatherald, and Associate Commissioners Tom Bell and Heather Seitz. Jay Pimpare, our Conservation Chairman, is absent this evening. Since the meeting is being conducted remotely, we will do all votes by roll call in alphabetical order. Please, after I call your name, please answer present. Kathy Berrigan?
Present.
Patricia Grady?
Present.
Chris McFarland?
Present.
James Rosebach?
Present.
Marianne Weatherald?
Present.
We have a quorum of 6 members this evening. In the absence of the Conservation Chair, I will be conducting this meeting. If anyone in the audience listening would like to address any of the applications, you will need to check the chat box on your screen. Our agent will be monitoring the chat box and any questions indicated. Our first item on the agenda this evening is Stormwater Permit 20-727, 28 Linden Drive, raise and rebuilds SF dwelling by Mr. Bowman. The notice for this has been published and I will read it to the minutes. In accordance with the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, October 8th, 2020 at 6:30 via remote participation on a Zoom platform for Stormwater Permit 20-7 to raise and rebuild a single-family dwelling with associated driveway, pool, patio, and grading at 28 Linden Drive by applicant Eric Bowman. The public is invited to offer input on the application in writing or this evening via Zoom. Okay, who do we have representing Mr. Bowman? Anybody here? Oh, Jeff?
Good evening, Jeff
Oh,
Hassett
Jeff
here with
Hassett's
Morse
there.
Engineering. How are
Good
you?
evening, Jeff.
Good. So I'm on my cell phone. I've been trying to connect on my computer and it doesn't seem to want to. So I'll proceed with the phone. So I'm here on behalf of the property owner, Eric Bowman, who recently purchased the property. And we've filed a stormwater permit to raise and reconstruct this house. The address is 28 Linden Drive. The property is about 23,000 square feet in area. It is developed with a single family home, a paved driveway, and lawn areas. The entire property is developed. There really aren't any wooded areas on the property. The high point in the property is about where the house sits, with the front yard sloping towards Linden Drive and the rear yard sloping towards the rear. So the proposed
Excuse me, Jeff, do you have a plan we could look at?
Yeah, can you guys see my screen or no?
No, we cannot.
No, all right.
We don't have your screen.
How about now?
There we go.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Please continue, Jeff.
Great. All right, so the proposed work is going to be to demolish that existing home, remove the existing paved driveway, and then to construct a new single-family home, a driveway on the left-hand side of the property in the same location as the existing driveway, going to a side entry garage, and then a looped driveway to the front porch. In the backyard, there is a proposed swimming pool and the associated patio around it. So I mentioned there are 2 design points. All of the runoff in the proposed conditions will flow to the back left corner where it does now, but we're grading in a grass depression in that area in order to hold back the flow and then infiltrate it on site. And then in the front of the property, we're proposing 2 catch basins within the driveway. They will capture all of the runoff from the driveway. And then we're putting in a subsurface infiltration system. It's a fairly large system made up of 12 Cultec chambers. The Cultec chambers are 3 feet wide each, 7.25 foot long, and 21 inches tall. And they're set in crushed stone, so there's quite a bit of volume there. And so the roof runoff will also be piped to that system. So by doing so, we are reducing the rates and the volumes of runoff for all storms, like we do on all projects. And on this project, as far as trees, there are only 2 trees that need to be removed. They're shown in red on the plan. One's a 24-inch caliper and the other is a 14. They can't be saved just because of the locations. But we are proposing to plant 5 deciduous trees in the front yard, which will be 3 to 4 inch caliper. And then in the vicinity of the pool along the property line, a row of evergreens for screening. So with that, I'd be glad to answer questions.
Jeff, do you have any comments?
Yeah, so there's no wetlands on site. This is a stormwater permit only. I don't know if anybody has been out. I know Eric's been out here. I don't know if anybody else has. If anybody wants to see pictures, I can show pictures of the area. So there, as far as vegetation goes, like Jeff said, there's the 124-inch tree here, which I think is like maybe an old crabapple tree or something. And then another one here. There's some miscellaneous shrubs in the back. Right now, there's currently no stormwater mitigation features on this house. It has gutters, but everything daylights right under the ground. Yeah, that's all I really have to add right now.
I have a question about the dry well system that you're putting in the driveway. I just was kind of concerned about the stormwater management. So you can put a driveway over that dry well, that large one in the driveway?
Yeah, you can. That's why I'm using the Cultec style chambers. I often on single family home projects use a product made by Infiltrator, but they're more intended for lawn areas. These Cultec chambers are installed under commercial parking lots where you're getting tractor trailers.
Oh.
So they're rated for truck traffic.
So had you considered putting that in a different location, perhaps on the right side? I know that we're not supposed to recommend that, but how many cars are expected to fit into that driveway? And what's the weight on that?
So the system wants to go there because it's the lower side of the property. You can't really put it on the uphill side. It would end up being too deep in the ground. I'm really not concerned about these being crushed by the weight of a vehicle. Like I said, they're rated for parking lots with fire trucks going over them and whatnot. And the company stands by it. They're what they call H20 rated.
Thank you.
Jeff, what is the percentage increase in impervious area we're talking about here?
So,
can you give it to me in square feet and in percentage terms? I'd appreciate it.
Sure. The existing impervious is 5,400 square feet. And the proposed is about 10,500.
You're doubling.
We are, yes.
That's an extraordinarily large number. I don't think it's been a long time since I've seen an increase as big as that. And I think we're going to have to go. Could you put your chart up with all the numbers on it? You know, the before and after numbers and flows and all, please.
Yeah, let me look for that, Eric, 1 second.
Okay.
So Eric, yes, we're doubling almost the amount of impervious, but there's currently no stormwater mitigation on the property. And we're putting in pretty large systems to hold back that volume.
Where is the bulk of the stormwater going right now? Is it infiltrating? Is it going in the road, storm sewers, or what?
It's flowing in 2 directions. It's flowing towards Linden Drive, and it's flowing to the rear, with the high point about where the house is now.
And is it leaving the site, or is most of it infiltrating?
During heavy rainfall, it would leave. Yes.
Mhm. Heavy being the 2-year storm?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So Eric, these are the runoff curve numbers that they provided.
Jeff, on a useful basis, which numbers here do you think are the ones we should normally look at? Which ones do you feel are most representative of the ongoing stormwater situation? 2-year, 10-year, whatever?
Well, the design points are all three, so they
Yeah.
have to satisfy for all three. So the pre-development is cubic feet per second.
Yeah.
Pre-development, post-development, so all the numbers show slight decreases, except this one right here is the same, which, you know, meets the performance requirements.
Yeah.
So you have
Yeah,
rates, and then down here's the volume of water coming off in acre feet.
Just so I'm understanding, it looks like there's slight improvement, but with double the amount of impervious.
Yeah,
Double.
that's correct.
Right, so that was the best you could get for an improvement on the stormwater baseline?
Is that the best we could do?
Well, it just doesn't look like much of an improvement, given there's no system in place now. That's how I'm reading it, if I'm misunderstanding it differently.
Okay. I'm just calculating the
Yep.
the percent decrease right now. I'll give you that in a minute. Just 1 second, actually.
I agree. I was looking at the numbers. It seemed like you could do greater to capture the runoff. Is that a rain garden in the back corner that you're planning? It doesn't say that in the depression. It looks like it says in the narrative, I think that you're planning to raise the grade, perhaps it was, but what is going to go there?
Yeah. The back corner, it's essentially a rain garden. I'm calling it a grass depression. The only real difference is that the bottom of it will be grass as opposed to like having plants. And I just calculated the percentage just on average of the 210 and the 100. And the rate of runoff is reduced by 6 or 7%, depending on the front or the back. And the volumes are reduced by 28% and 12%. So there is a reduction here.
Yeah.
I mean, there are obviously other things we could do. We can make the systems a little bit bigger, but it does comply, and it is a reduction.
Jeff, let me ask you a question. I'm looking at, I don't see a page number here. Well, it's page 61 of the PDF, where it has a summary for pond 1P grass depression. And it sets an elevation of 95, and then it gives you a surface area, a storage capacity, and a cumulative storage. But the weir on your drawing, or spillway as you call it, is at 94.5. So the water's never going to get to 95. Could you explain? I mean, I assume this is an engineering system that's beyond most of our understandings, but are you in fact taking credit for the 95 contour, even though the water will never get above 94.5?
No, we're not. We could model up to 96, 97, but if the water's not getting to that elevation, then you're not taking any credit for it in the model. The model is only accounting for the volume at the depth.
So when I even though I see elevation 95, 95 with a certain surface area and a certain storage capacity, you're saying that that's really only taking into account up to 94.5?
Yes, it does get deeper than 94.5. In a 100-year storm, when you have a bunch of water going to it, the weir is 1.5 feet wide. So it does, in a 100-year storm, get deeper than the 94.5, but it doesn't exceed that 95. Does that make sense?
We've been having a lot of, well, we haven't had any rain lately, but in years past, we've had a lot of storms, a lot of rain. Is there a way that can handle a 10-year storm instead of a 100-year storm? And what can you do to, I guess, make that deeper or a better system?
Yeah, so
Right now, we know that it's already, it seems to be, if that's, the water is flowing all the way to that corner, it's already disturbing the neighbors, and we want to keep everything on this property. So what can you do to make it handle more water now instead of in a 100-year storm?
Oh, it does exactly that. So we run the 2-year storm, the 10-year storm, and the 100. So in the lesser storms, it's holding back more of the water before releasing any.
What
Can
does
you
that
label
mean,
that
Jen?
as, can you label that depression as something other than just, it's just depression? Can you make that into, like, define it as a rain garden or some kind of, not, maybe not a dry well, but what can you do to put something there?
It'll be very obvious in the field once it's graded in, because the yard is generally flat and you're going to have this depression in the back left corner. I can call it a rain garden. They're one in the same. Most rain gardens have plants in them. That's really the only main difference.
Mhm.
But most rain gardens have a maintenance plan, Jeff.
Oh, and this
I don't
this does
see a
have
maintenance plan for a depression in the rear lawn.
we do have a maintenance plan for it.
For the depression?
We do. It's part of the report. Yes.
Okay, I must have missed it. Excuse me.
What's directly behind this property?
It's lawn associated with the house behind it.
Well, I'm looking at Google Earth, and there seems to be a row of trees going down to to a small pond, correct?
It looked like a right of way to me a little bit. And I
Yeah.
didn't know who owned the fence. Is
Yeah.
it,
So immediately beyond the property, there is an area a strip of woods, and then grass right beyond that. And there is a 10-foot wide right of way that runs through there as well. Yep. It's not developed away, but it's more of a paper right of way.
Is that not also a drainage system?
There's no drainage ditch. I saw that on the mapping as well and went out and looked for it. There may or likely is a buried pipe within that right of way, but there's no ditch or no wetland.
Okay. Now, in your sorry, I don't have the name again. Spillway. In your spillway, you in effect you are channelizing water as if it overflows from the grass depression. Is there a concern that water is going to go into that right of way and cause washout in that area?
No, because the watershed area going to this rain garden is fairly small, so you're not getting a ton of water coming out of the rain garden. And that right of way is really just a wooded area.
But you said you said there was a road or something there.
There's a 10-foot wide right of way shown on paper, shown on record plans,
Okay.
but it's not developed in any way. It's just a wooded area.
Jeff, have you done a perk test where you're going to put this pond?
We have not done a perk test. Nope. We sized it based on the USGS soils map conditions.
That does look like a pond to the northeast, algae covered pond, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that's what it is, but it certainly looks like it to me.
No,
Yeah,
it
that-
does show up on his plan. There is a 100-foot buffer shown on his plan. I was just concerned whether or not that wooded area was some sort of an intermittent stream.
Well, it said
No.
if there was a vernal pool there, right? Isn't that what,
Mhm.
that's why you have the 100-foot buffer?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
When I walked the property, it definitely looked like beyond the fence that it was a channel, a ditch of some sort that at one time, when there was rain, it would gather water in it. So it could be what what we think it is, some kind of drainage ditch or something.
I did see that map and I went back there looking to see if there was potentially a wetland in that area. And I did not see any signs of a wetland in that area immediately behind the property. There certainly is a wetland off to the back right 100 feet from the property though.
Okay, but there's no wetland buffer zone problems or anything else as indicated, Jeff?
That's correct.
Okay. Well. Does anybody find any real reason to object to the stormwater permit? I know it seems unusual, an incredible amount of impervious, but Chris, I see you perking up.
No, I mean, Jeff ran the numbers. I can't argue with the numbers. It does seem, it seems amazing that that size rain garden and the chambers are going to make up for a doubling, but since there's nothing in place right now, I suspect that the numbers won't lie.
Yeah. And I assume none of the neighbors have written or raised any issues, Jeff, that you've heard of?
No, I haven't heard from any of them.
No, okay, all right.
So Jeff, I just
Okay.
want to go over, so there's a gutter system on this house. It goes into like French drains around the house. Can you describe the whole system before it goes into the dry well? How are you capturing the water off the roof, and just explain all that?
Yep. All of the roof areas will have gutters and all of the downspouts will connect and then be piped into the underground system.
So it's all going into one system, the dry well underneath the driveway.
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, that just sounds like a very big property or house. And the house is not, it's on slab, or it has a garage or basement rather. Are you digging it out?
It has a basement. Yep.
I think in the beginning of the call that you mentioned you could do some more. What other things could you do?
I mean, there's room to make that underground system larger. If you'd be more comfortable with it, I could add a fifth row or add 3 more chambers at the end of it to make it 15 chambers instead of 12.
That wouldn't pose any engineering problems, would it, Jeff?
No, not at all.
I suggest we go that route, Marianne.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what Marianne is speaking to is kind of my concern too, given that I just would have assumed there would be a little bit more of a mitigation or reduction in the stormwater efforts made, especially given that there are no current systems there at all, and we're doubling the amount of impervious.
And tell me that it says the driveway's pervious. Is that right?
Impervious.
Well, why is it not more earth friendly? What can you do about it? Why is it not? Oh, wait, it is pervious. Sorry.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's not.
What is pervious or impervious? I kind of can't see the map right now.
Impervious.
Oh, it's impervious.
It's paved.
Can you
Why
make
have you
the
put in
driveway
a
better?
Impervious driveway, Jeff?
I mean, I think a paved driveway is consistent with the other homes in the neighborhood. And
That
with
doesn't mean much of
the,
anything.
in the existing, there's currently a paved driveway on the property.
Right. What other material could you use for that driveway to make it more friendly?
I mean, there are other options, shell, crushed stone, but I'd want to consult the homeowner about that.
Yeah, if you're gonna put in
Okay.
permeable pavers or whatnot, that's gonna quadruple the price of the driveway, I imagine.
Mhm.
Even
Right.
more. Yeah, that's a significant cost and really should be limited to smaller sites where you need to do it. And he's met the burden of the stormwater bylaw
Mhm.
and he's willing to add extra chambers. It seems a little extreme to push a pervious driveway on a project like this. It's a half-acre lot.
Okay.
Jeff, just one last question. Is there an overflow on the Cultec system?
Yeah, the catch basin itself, it would back up through the grate of the catch basin.
So at what point does it do that in your calculations?
Let me look. It does not in the 2-year storm. And 1 second. And you do get a small amount of flow out of it in the 10-year storm.
So if you added another set of chambers, you may be able to mitigate that?
Yeah, most likely.
Well, I think that might be worthwhile just from because they are right as you hit that curve. So, in freezing weather, it'd be better if it wasn't pumping water right to the end of the driveway, for sure. So I would think that you'd want to try to do that.
Okay, that wouldn't be an issue. There is room to extend the system, and make it longer.
Okay. Commissioners, anything else we'd like to add? I suggest someone make a motion to approve.
Jeff, is there anyone from the public wants to speak on this?
I don't have any comments in the Q&A, but if there is anybody from the public who would like to speak, this is the opportunity. Just write your question in the Q&A function. So if this is going to be approved, I think it just needs to have the condition that the 5th row of Cultec chambers be included, and that we received the revised plan by. Well, I'm not going to be here next week, so whenever you want.
Whenever you want. Jeffrey, I think we definitely want it within 2 weeks by the time our next meeting comes up.
Yeah,
Right.
Jeff.
Yeah,
Jeff Hassett,
yeah,
do you think you'd be able to get that to us in like a week?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay.
Would anyone want to make
Jeff,
a
what's the motion on this?
approve, please? Is there a motion?
Jeff, what would the motion be?
So the motion would be to issue the stormwater permit for 28 Linden Drive with the condition that a revised site plan, including a 5th row of Cultec chambers, be submitted to the Conservation Commission by next week, October 15th, by the close of business.
All right.
We also add that.
Do I need to repeat that, or can I just make that into a motion?
Just make it, Chris.
All right, so moved.
So
Like
moved.
yours.
Okay.
Like, can we also add that the shallow grass depression is also a rain garden as well, like a marked rain garden with the maintenance plan that he mentioned?
I think it's in the plan, Marianne, but we can add that. Yeah.
I think it should be defined.
Okay. Rain garden with a maintenance plan. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the stormwater plan for 28 Linden Drive as presented with the conditions that we expend the Cultec to 5 chambers, and then we define clearly the rain garden in back with a maintenance plan. Are there any seconds?
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say, we'll do it alphabetically. Kathy Berrigan?
Aye.
Aye. Patricia Grady?
Aye.
Chris McFarlane?
Yay.
James Rosebach?
Aye.
Marianne Weatherold? And Eric Eisner votes aye. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6-0. Fine. It passes. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Jeff Summers,
Yes,
I'm logged in on my computer as well. Could you let me into the meeting for the next project?
sure.
And then I'll log out on this phone.
Yep, gotcha. Yep,
All right, thank you.
you're welcome.
Let me get my papers sorted here. Okay, the next project this evening is NOI 20/20, 183, 187 Atlantic Avenue Boardwalk and Replication for the Fernandos. And I'll read it into the record. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetland Bylaws and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, October 8th, 2020 at 6:30 via remote participation on a Zoom platform for notice of intent 20/20 to construct elevated boardwalks across a bordering vegetated wetland at 183 and 187 Atlantic Avenue by the applicants Sanjiva and Michelle Fernando. Okay.
Eric, this is Chris McFarlane. I'm going to recuse myself from this hearing.
Reason, Chris, do you have to give a reason or do you not have to?
I don't think
Okay,
I don't think he needs to.
fine, that's done. All right. Okay, so we're down to 5 from 6. Okay. Is there a representative of the applicant here?
Yes, thank you, Eric. Jeff Hassett with Morse Engineering.
Big night for you, Jeff.
Big night is right. So yeah, I'll give you an overview of the project. It's an NOI filing for 2 properties, being 183 and 187 Atlantic Ave. The owners of the property, I believe, have called into this Zoom meeting. The owners of 183 are Sanji and Michelle Fernando, and of 187 Atlantic Ave, Rob and Lynn Schwant. So there are 4 parts to this project. The first part of the project is that both of these lots, they're not waterfront lots. They don't have frontage on the water, but they do have the rights to a 40-foot wide way beginning at the back left corner of the property, leading to the ocean. Now, the back house number 187 currently has a walkway, a path essentially through the wetland to that way, which is how they get to the beach. It's a muddy path through the wetland. So they're proposing to replace that with an elevated walkway. So in my opinion, that would certainly be a benefit to the wetland resource area. Now, number 183 being the front house does not have access currently to that way. So they're proposing a second walkway for their benefit. To give you some details on that walkway, it's a 3-foot wide walkway, 3 feet off the ground. And it's proposed to have 3/4 inch spaces between the decking for light penetration. So it's essentially being constructed like a dock to the same criteria with the 1-to-1 ratio of height to width and the 3/4 inch spacing to allow light to penetrate under. The intent is that it will not have railings and that it's being supported by 4x4s at 20 feet on center. So 20 feet is a long span, but it is doable. The 4x4s will be spanned with 3x10s. And that's really just to minimize the number of posts to minimize the impact. So the only impact on the ground will be the 4x4 posts. There will be a total of 40 of them, 24 of which are in the wetlands. And it only totals 2 square feet of disturbance, being the post area within the resource area. We are proposing replication. Typically it's done at 2-to-1. In this case, it's 97-to-1, being that it's almost 200 square feet of planting areas. So that's the first part of the project. Moving on, the second part of the project is that in the front portion of the wetland closest to Atlantic Ave, the Fernandos at 183 Atlantic Ave disturbed that area, and I believe they have an enforcement order on them to restore it. So we have Brad Holmes
Where is
of
that?
environmental.
Jeff, could you point out where that disturbed area is again?
Yeah, it's this area right in here.
All right.
So that's about 1,100 square feet, and we asked Brad Holmes of Environmental Consulting and Restoration to come up with a restoration plan for that. And what he's proposing is to plant 6 trees and 14 bushes, as well as a seed mix to restore it. The third part of the project is the removal of non-native invasive plants, both within the resource area and the buffer. And these invasives are basically out competing with the native plants. So by removing them and allowing the others to thrive improves the resource area. And the fourth item of the project is limited vista pruning.
I'm sorry, Jeff, I'm trying to catch up. Where is the area with the invasive you're going to eliminate?
It's essentially the entire wooded area, and it would be done, the narrative explains that it would be done at the direction of the wetland scientist and also the conservation agent by first going out and flagging what is invasive non-native to be removed, and then removing it, and then coming back to see if there's any need to plant additional plants to thicken the wooded area, or if it will just restore naturally in a short period of time. The fourth item of the project is, again, limited vista pruning. This is specified not to reduce the canopy by less than 90% of the canopy that's there now. So it's not taking the tops off trees. It's just limited pruning where necessary.
Where is that going to take place?
Where?
Yeah.
It would
Which
be the
trees?
larger trees through that are blocking the view of the water. Specifically, there's one right next to the wetland replication area. That is the one that they really want to prune, and that is called out on the plan, front left corner of the wetland, right there.
And you're telling us that I know that tree. I've been down there. That area, that tree, that shrub, by slightly lowering some lower branches on it, you're going to be able to see all the way down the long length of that narrow corridor to the ocean. Is that what I'm hearing?
The idea is to prune no more than 10% of the canopy to open up as many views as possible.
I don't think, I mean, that's a very low area, Jeff. You're not going to get any views out of that, except the back of the house on the left.
Well, it's not necessarily the understory of the trees. It could be the upper part of the canopy that's blocking the view.
Okay.
I mean, ideally, they'd probably like to take the whole tree down, but that's not what we're proposing.
Jeff, are you still in your third project? You said you wanted to remove the invasive plants in the wooded area. Are those invasive plants in the 50 that you're talking about?
There are invasives throughout the wetland itself, as well as the buffer, including the 50-foot buffer. Yeah.
But is it only for that left boardwalk?
No, throughout both properties, they'd like to remove invasives.
Such as the Phragmites?
Not Phragmites in this case. Brad describes it as non-native invasive plants such as privet, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, multiflora rosa, Moro's honeysuckle, garlic mustard, oriental bittersweet, etc.
My thought on this whole plan was when I first read it, I was like, oh, that's, you want to redo the boardwalk and we've seen this property before. And I thought you wanted to redo the boardwalk in the back that already has the planks on it. So I was all right with that. I reread it again. I was a little shocked to find out, no, you want 2 boardwalks side by side going through a wetlands 50-foot buffer zone. So I'd really like to understand this better. I'm not really, I don't understand why neighbors can't get along and use the same boardwalk.
I do understand that the neighbors have some objection to it. I read both of the letters that were submitted today. I think it's all stuff we can address, and that was one thing that they brought up. I think ultimately we'd want to continue the hearing this evening after we discuss it, obviously, and to address some of those issues. But during that time, I can talk to the neighbors about maybe making these walkways meet up to limit the amount of boardwalk.
We also just recently looked at a boardwalk on Border Street, so I'm very familiar with
That's right.
the rules and regulations of this. So I have a lot of thoughts. It was very similar to, I guess, what the neighbors presented, but having already studied section 33 of the coastal wetlands regulations about catwalks, I have a lot of concerns about having such a giant boardwalk, two sizes going through that. And I don't even see a plan for what a boardwalk looks like. And in our other proposal that we received, it did have a drawing of what a boardwalk would, or a catwalk would look like, height, descriptions. It was all laid out. So I don't want to further discuss this until I really see something.
Sure. So in the bottom right corner, we do have a cross section. I know the other project you're referring to led then to a pier into a dock, and I know they had a cross section of the entire system.
Mhm.
I could prepare a profile for this as well, if that would help.
You know, Jeff, I'm more concerned about the abject destruction of the buffer zone and the wetlands, which you're proposing here. It's the kind of thing we normally would not even discuss with anybody. I'll be very honest. We are discussing it and we're giving you the time of day. But for the Conservation Commission to come out and entertain a project that would have indiscriminate removal of non-native plants without any specification as to what they are, where they are, and what else is there, to go after a stand of mighty phragmites that nobody has developed the technology to control long term. This whole plan kind of is not very credible, I don't think. And the other thing is, at the end of this walkway, I don't even see the 50 and 100-foot buffer zone for the coastal bank, which is clearly you're impinging down at the far end, right below the Larson's house. There, so you have the coastal bank 50 and 100-foot issues in addition to what you have here for the BBW. I think that has to be rectified. You know, this, you're asking a lot, all right? And they have every right to do that. But to put in two walkways, building in the resource area, which is something we don't want to do anywhere, but right next to each other, I would say this is a very unrealistic operation that you're hoping for here. But maybe the other commissioners are a bit more reasonable and a bit more understanding than I am. But in any case, I think the next step is to have a site visit, because it's, you know, I've been down there. It's very hard to take this map and then actually see what you're trying to do, because it's a real boondoggle of plans, and it's kind of hard to figure out where you are, Jeff, okay? So before we go much further, I think we need to have a site visit for the Conservation Commission. And we can do that next week, possibly, if you can arrange it, or if Jeff can arrange it. What does everybody else feel? Have many of you
Eric.
been down there to see
Yeah.
this? Anybody?
Hi, this is James. I've actually been out there a couple of times.
Yeah.
I remember when this project was approved through zoning, there was a condition to actually remove that old, like, guest house shack out towards the back of the property.
Yeah.
And then when it came through conservation, it was pretty clear when the house was approved and those lots were subdivided, the house was kind of approved, and a lot of that was based on that house that was sitting back in the wetlands was being taken down and that was going to be restored. So I was kind of surprised to see this project come forward with an extensive walkway going through the entire wetland in the exact area where previously it was agreed that they were taking the house down and not disturbing wetland any more than what they were to build the house.
Yeah, so,
I mean,
so that house within the wetland at this point has been removed. And we're showing those areas as a green diagonal hashing and we're noting that they were previously approved replication planting areas per referencing the DEP file number. They haven't been planted yet, but that is the intent to have those areas planted.
You're talking about in the upper right-hand corner of the diagram, Jeff? Yeah. If you
I
visit,
agree, that hasn't been planted at all, but I did see further down the walkway, the current walkway, that some of the trees have been chopped. And to ask for these walkways when you're already hacking at trees kind of bothered me too.
Jeff, if
Eric, you noted before that you were concerned about kind of the extent of the invasive removal that we're saying throughout that entire wooded area, but not with the intent that they could just go kind of like do whatever they wanted. It would all be done under the supervision of having it flagged by the wetland scientist and then reviewed by Jeff Summers before taking anything down.
okay.
It wouldn't be a free-for-all out there.
Jeff, you know why we're here. Our job is to protect the wetlands. Our job is not to make it easy for developers to cut them down and to put in walkways. We are here to develop the interests of the wetlands for the future of Cohasset, its residents, long-term, all right? And we're not here to make life easy for you, and we're not here to look and say, oh yeah, it'd be nice to have a walkway there. Our job is to protect these areas and make sure they're natural. What is the purpose of a buffer zone, Jeff? Can you tell me?
To protect the resource area.
The buffer zone is to provide a vegetated area of isolation, protecting the resource area from the pollution and the effects of man. It's not an area where we can negotiate whether we build or not. It's got a very distinct environmental intention. And I don't think we're playing any heed to that whatsoever in what we're planning on here, I'll tell you. Further, on the right-hand side, if you look at your green hash marks, you see the walkway in the upper right-hand corner. 40 feet of that has already been clear cut. All right? If you look there, if you go in 40 feet along the walkway, going toward where dog legs left, 40 feet of that that Phragmites has already been cut down. And I don't know who gave the authority to do that. That's resource area. It's not even buffer zone. So we have a lot to account for here as this project goes ahead. And I think this is, like I said, this is the kind of thing we're best handling by going down and seeing and taking a look at it. That's my feeling. Anybody else? I turn the floor over to you, commissioners.
I suggest we all go down there and look at the two planning areas that they're planning.
Yeah. I'm not even sure if it makes sense to have one proposal, Jeff. I think we could argue both sides of that, but that's what you chose, all right? It does complicate it.
Eric,
Yeah,
I agree. There's a lot there. There's a lot to unbundle in the one proposal. And I think that was one thing, Jeff, I struggled a little bit with too. There's a lot to unfold in this one proposal. It looks like several, but I think it's a great idea to do a site visit. I think that would clarify and give people the opportunity to really read through some of the finer details, like some of the invasive mitigations and how you would do it. And there's a lot in it that is concerning.
The commissioners will weigh and see and cogitate and decide what they want. But let me just remind you, in the Cohasset wetland regulations and in the Massachusetts wetland regulations, there is no mention of the right of us to go in to the wetlands and remove invasives. The word invasive is not mentioned in the regulations. So Jeff may want to get rid of invasions, but that's something special that's not in the regulations. All right. We can decide it should be, that's our right. But there's nothing in the regulations that says, you Conservation Commission, we want you to go out into the wetlands and remove invasive species wherever you find them. That's not part of our remit. We may want to adopt it, but if you look at the text of the Cohasset wetlands regulations, it's not there. So I think we need to keep that in mind. It'll come up later on tonight also. We have another project that has lots of invasives. Actually, we have a few projects tonight that are dealing with invasives. So.
Eric, I hate to cut you off, but what, Jeff, on the cover page of the notice of intent, I was confused. It says Mohawk Way on it. Does Mohawk Way have an easement into this property? I mean, it's kind of far away, so I was just confused. What's 183 Atlantic, 187, and then 17 Mohawk? What is that? They just own the property?
That's the mailing address for the owners of 187 Atlantic Ave.
Oh, okay. I was
Okay.
confused. Well, I suggest we make a date and go visit. I can go not on Monday. I could go probably Thursday.
I'm free on Thursday. Jeff, do you want to arrange a visit for the commission?
I can try. I'm not gonna be in town after tomorrow afternoon
Okay.
for a week and a half.
Okay.
Um,
Jeff, can we wait until Jeff is back from wherever he is, Mr. Hassett?
Yeah, that'd be okay.
so that would be the following week.
Okay.
Okay.
I
There's-
came
there's-
for Wednesdays.
For the following week. Could it be before our Concom that week, Jeff, or is your schedule not allow that?
I can go on the 20th. I can go on the 19th, but I prefer the 20th.
Any of those days is fine with me.
22nd. Jeff, 20th?
That's
Yeah, I'm
fine with me.
available on the 20th.
Okay.
Heather? Tom, are you available? Okay. Kathleen?
I am available on the 20th. I have a math class in the morning from 9 to 10, but after that,
Suppose we made it, say, at 11 o'clock on the morning of the 20th? Is that satisfactory? I know, Patricia, you're never going to be able to make it. All right. But I don't
No,
know.
I
don't know
won't,
what
but
we
I
can do.
could go and visit at a separate time.
Wait,
Okay.
that class is that the fall conference week?
yeah.
I don't know.
Oh.
I'm way
Oh,
beyond that.
no. I can do the 20th.
Eric, before we move on here, there's a couple hands raised. I know one of them, well, he's gone now. Oh, no, he's there. I know one of them is an attorney for the abutters. I don't know if you want to allow them to speak.
I'm sorry, I got called away for a second, Jeff. Excuse me. What was
Sure,
that?
there's a couple hands raised here. I know one of them is the attorney for the abutters. I don't know if you want to let him speak.
I think we ought to, yeah. And then we
Okay.
can arrange the meeting afterwards. Okay.
Okay, I'm making him a panelist now.
You're muted. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Good morning or afternoon, evening, whatever.
Good evening to the commission. Thank you, everyone, for your conversation this evening. There isn't much for us to add. We've heard from the commission and we join in the concerns that you've raised. You've read our paperwork, both from our from Shorefront Consulting and from ourselves on the legal front, and you've acknowledged those concerns, so I appreciate that. And it sounds like it will be continued for a later date, and understanding that there will be a site visit, we would like the opportunity to request to be present at that site visit and to continue to have conversations with Mr. Hassett on behalf of the applicants.
Noted.
So we just wanted to acknowledge our concerns that the commission has already addressed, but realize that there is a strong opposition to the proposal as it sits right now.
You're here on behalf, are you free to say who you're here on behalf of?
Oh, yes, of course. Thank you, Mr. Eisenhower. I'm here on behalf of Scott and Allison Wilson of 191 Atlantic Ave, the direct abutter to the west of the properties.
All right, thank you. We will include you, all right?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Jeff, who else do we have? Anybody else?
I don't know who this is. It's just a phone number. Just a technical note there. So really, it would be up to the applicants who they want to have at the site visit, being their property. I think really it's really up to the Fernandos and the Schwants if they want to allow other people other than the commission to be present at the site visit. I don't really think it's up to us. It's really up to the property owners.
Yeah, let me consult with them and we'll send you an email tomorrow, Jeff.
Okay.
Okay, but tentatively we'll do it on the 20th at 11 o'clock. That seems to work, Jeff, to be confirmed. Okay.
The other person that has their hand up with just the phone number, could you just type into the Q&A who you are? I'm trying to make you a panelist, but I can't seem to do that. Chris McFarlane.
I
Chris?
think Chris has recused himself.
I'm here.
Oh, right. Since you have co-host abilities, can you see who that is, the phone number? Can you make them a panelist? I can't seem to do it. My options are lower hand, rename, or remove.
I can allow them to talk.
Okay.
And you need to, who's ever at 781, you need to unmute yourself and please identify yourself for the record.
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so I have been unable for the entirety of this meeting since 6:30 to get on the Zoom call. And I think somebody else mentioned that at the beginning of the call either. So I did dial into this number and been pushing *9 to be identified. And finally, after the first set of meetings, somebody noticed that I was raising my hand on the phone only. So my name is David Sofrino. I live at 18 Linden Drive, and I object to your approval of the permit for the 28 Linden Drive project because I have seen absolutely no plans on that. None were posted. Morse did not answer any calls to find out what the plans are. And when I listen to the description of the plans, I'm concerned about the doubling of the, impermeability part of it, especially since the driveway to the left is sunken down a full story and presumably they're going to raise it up or whatever they're going to do. I don't know because I haven't seen any of this. So I would like the time to have my counsel look at these plans and get back to you.
Jeff?
Yeah, I think, I don't know what to say at this point. It's already been voted and approved on.
Oh, but you don't have a valid public meeting. I mean, that's clear because people were not able to access the meeting and have their voices heard. I mean, there's a clear record here that there was no access on Zoom to the public. You'll find that your link is valid.
Yeah. As an abutter, you were notified of the project, though, I understand. And you did receive the project details? No? Yes?
Yeah, no, I didn't. It says propose, raise, and rebuild. And as I say, I tried to find materials. It said there'll be materials. You notice that there'll be materials on the website or available from Morse Engineering. So I thought that, since there was none available, that they weren't going to be made available before the meeting.
Did you contact Morse Engineering at all and request those plans?
Sometimes I got no response. I understand that you've sort of deferred a final decision on this until next week. Is that correct, the 15th?
No.
Yeah, that was right.
No, we didn't.
No,
Well,
that project was approved.
There was the one condition that we received the revised.
Then I'm
the 15th.
on the basis of validity.
Well,
You just can't hold a meeting and not let anybody in.
Jeff, you know what happened in terms of admitting this individual? I'm sorry, excuse me. What is your last name, please?
David Sofrino.
Sofrino. Do you know what happened with Mr. Sofrino not being allowed in, as he says, or I don't know.
But the recording will evidence that you found nobody on the meeting site. I mean, you were wondering where everybody was. So I'm sure I'm not the only one. I just persisted through the phone line.
No, we can see all of the attendees.
On the Zoom, perhaps. I don't know how people are able to get on the Zoom. I wasn't able to. And last week I was on a zoning board of appeals meeting in Cohasset, so I know it works usually.
Mrs. Safrina, we're going to have to discuss this with legal counsel and find out where
Yes.
we stand. It hasn't happened before, all right? And I
Mhm.
do sympathize with your situation, and I'm sorry you were cut out and all that. And Jeff, I think
I'm cut out. I just wasn't let in. I mean, I wasn't able to raise my hand.
I know.
And then there was no materials provided.
The materials are on the website, all right? It's
I
on
don't-
the, it's on
Notice
the,
it says go to, and then in the notice, it says clearly go to the bottom of the Conservation Commission page.
we have a
What does it say?
OneDrive site that has all the plans and all the projects there that are open to anybody. who
I don't
wants
see it on your website. I looked where it says virtual meeting information tab at the bottom of the page, as it says in the notice. And then there's a page on your website where it says meeting materials, and there's nothing for this meeting today.
Eric, I'm not sure if the public has that.
You mean
No, they
access to
don't.
OneDrive?
No.
No, they have
Oh.
to request the
They
plan.
have to go to town hall.
Yeah.
What they do get is the agenda. I think that's,
Yeah, but notice said it would be available on the website.
So at the beginning of the meeting, so were you able to connect and hear what was said, but you just couldn't raise your hand? Is that correct? Because you
I came in
indicated
late,
that you,
but I heard talking about people couldn't get in, but I was only on the phone and I couldn't, I pushed *9 a number of times to try to raise my hand and say, look, I'm not able to see the plans. I haven't
You
seen them before.
mentioned-
I know they were displayed on the Zoom meeting because you were talking about them. That would have been helpful.
you mentioned the comment that was made at the beginning of the meeting about nobody being there. So were you connected in the beginning? So you actually heard one of the commissioners say that it didn't look like anyone was connected?
I don't know if it was exact beginning or exactly where it was. I mean, people were talking when I got on the phone.
I do think I can clarify that one piece. I think it was just a matter of being able to see where the attendees were versus the panelists, and that's just a view on Zoom. But I understand your concerns. I think that's what we were talking about at the beginning of the meeting, though.
Yeah, no, I know you can't resolve this tonight,
Yeah.
but I'm just letting
since
you know. So,
since we're in the middle of 183.
yeah, you can go on with your other matters. I'm not interested in the rest.
Jeff, can you look into this more? Since we have
Who can I send an email to tomorrow with further information about my concerns?
Could you please send it to me, Eric Eisenhower, and Jeff Summers? All right, and we will get back to you.
I did send an email to Jeff because I did locate his email address on the website.
That's fine.
And Eric, what's your email address?
Mine is EREWI. I'll give you my my town, which is Eisenhower at cohassetma.org.
CohassetMA.org.
All right, and we will. Jeff and I will get back.
At CohassetMA.org. Okay,
Yeah.
I will communicate by email and let you get on with the meeting.
Thank
We'll
you.
get
Thank
back. My apologies. We're still rather new at Zoom, and we're not.
We all are, exactly.
Some of these crazy things that happen. We don't have a cookie cutter solution to all of them yet. Okay.
I mean, I just want to make another comment, which is I was very surprised that with as many questions that was raised and with the doubling of the impervious area, with a lack of understanding about the private way that's behind there and how that does serve as sort of a storm drain and all that. I was just surprised by, your ability to sort of come to a conclusion on this based upon an application without any public comment. So that did surprise me.
Okay. We'll be getting back to you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, David.
Jeff, 183, we've agreed to, do we need a motion to continue this till the 22nd?
So we're going to have the meeting on the 20th at 11 a.m. and we're going to continue till October 22nd.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to have a vote on the continuance if the applicant's in agreement.
Yes, yep.
All right. So Mr. Fernando, I assume you're involved in this. You're happy with the seeing coming back, and we'll discuss this further on the 22nd, okay?
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys and welcome into our home.
And I think we need some guidance from you as to non-commission members who you'll authorize to visit your land. I think there's legal counsel, all right, for one of your neighbors who would like to, and you can get a hold of Jeff and advise that, okay?
Yeah, will do.
Fine, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next project. We don't have to read this in, we've read it in before. It's an NOI 20-19 and stormwater permit for 2026, 76 Lambert's Lane, sports court by Mr. Marchetti, continued from 9/17/20. I think most of us, we had a visit, a good visit. We walked around, we saw a lot. There are some recent submissions that came in today. I have not personally had a full chance to digest them. So I think inevitably we're going to have a continuance on this. And I assume some of you have not had a chance to fully review and surmise what you wanted. But I'll turn it over to Jeff, and maybe you can lead us to the next step, Jeff.
Yeah, so I think tonight we're primarily going to discuss where the actual, what is the position of the court that the commission is going to approve once the final position or location of the court is determined. Then the engineer and landscape architect can then go ahead and complete their plans for resubmittal.
Okay, I suppose at this stage we should have a presentation of the three options, Jeff? There are three options.
I'll let Kara or Steve speak on that.
Okay.
Good evening, Steve Gioso with SciTech, and
Good evening.
Kara Lamb is here also, the landscape architect, and Dr. Marchetti as well, the applicant. As Jeff indicated, and as the chairman pointed out, there were some supplemental materials submitted by the landscape architect after your site visit the other week. Basically looking at some options or alternatives for positioning of the sport court and the sitting area and fire pit and some of the other features. I know Kara will probably fill in the gaps here a little bit if I miss something, but she evaluated three different primary locations. The first one was trying to keep the same basic position, but try and move the court around a little bit in the backyard area. The problems with that option, because again, that area, as the commission observed, is the area that's already been disturbed, and unfortunately without a permit. So again, we know that the commission is not happy with that particular issue, but that area is disturbed, and so Carol looked at trying to move the court around that area to avoid the wildlife easement area, the solar panels that exist, the swimming pool. There's a underground, there's a propane tank there. So trying to move within that area, and there really just isn't the room in that location to reposition the court without still encroaching in the 50-foot buffer slightly, or interfering or getting into the actual other features that exist on the property, such as the solar panels. I think at the last meeting, we talked about the option of flipping to the opposite side of the site, but I think that again, there's a significant amount of tree clearing, grade alteration that really makes that a difficult position to try and locate this feature. She also looked at the two front areas of the site on the front side of the house and presented two options in those areas. As you're facing the house from the street area, the area to the right side, she did show a positioning of the court. It did keep the court out of the 50-foot no-touch zone. However, it would require a significant amount of tree clearing, and there are some other grade issues there that, again, would result in a greater land alteration, more land clearing, and we think that that would be more of a potential impact on the resource areas within the buffer zone. And on the left side, again, we have not mapped the wetlands there, but the Mass GIS mapping indicates that there is a potential for a small wetland area, probably the border between the two lots, and that would, again, eliminate that as a viable option spot for relocating the sport court. So we're back to the original proposal back to where the system or where the court is positioned on the land. And I don't know if Kara can add anything more to the explanation I provided, but again, we think it's the least intrusive and the least impact on the resource area and on the buffer zone by trying to work a positioning somewhere in that location that the commission can be comfortable with. We know that at the last meeting, the commission expressed a concern about the extent of stormwater mitigation. And we've looked at some options to bolster that, but we didn't want to bring that forward until a fundamental decision was made on the positioning of the different features that the applicant would like to cite on the property. So unless Kara has something else to add, we can hopefully get the commission's input to see where we head with this one.
Kara, you have anything to add? No? Are you, is she live there or? All I have is her name. I don't have any indication that she's communicating or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Kara, is that you have to unmute and get on video on the bottom left.
Jeff, how would you like to handle this?
Yeah, so when I hover over her name, it will usually show if she's muted or not, but it doesn't show anything. So I really don't know if she may be trying to speak there, but she's not coming through.
I can add as she's trying to come through the court size we were talking about in general is 60 feet wide.
Mr. Marchetti, could you speak up, please? I have some problems hearing you.
Okay, and I have good mumbling techniques. So the court typically is 60 feet wide, and we were talking about trying to go down to 58 feet. I did see where one place said you can go to 56 feet, and I went out with, after you guys came with strings and measuring and all that, it looks like I could swing the court enough so that it doesn't encroach on the easement in the northeast corner. The problem with swinging it a lot, it then one end dives in so that it is right up against the 50-foot mark, but not encroaching. Now it goes, so it almost brings it closer to the pool and for a little further away from the solar, but furthest away from that spike, that 50-foot buffer area that original plans encroached to like 6 or 7 feet on. So that, I guess that's the fourth option. That area of 6 or 7 feet is when most of you are out there. It's kind of a bedrock raised area. So I'll let the others jump in. Kara, I'm not sure if she's here, but
I think she might be. It said that she was connecting to audio.
yeah, mine was spinning for a very long time, so I missed a chunk of what the introduction was.
Yeah, I don't think we have her still.
It seems to me though, Mr. Marchetti, that your view is that you, although there are alternatives on either side of your driveway in front, you would not like to pursue those. Is that how I see it, or?
The one in front is actually, I didn't know there was a wetland on basically my neighbor's, but it borders my property. So that
Is it an official wetlands or is it just a soggy area? Is it
the Mass GIS, I guess.
Okay, that's fine. So it is a wetlands, all right. And you're sure that if you put the court in there that you would impinge on that?
Just Kara and Jeff, we were looking at things. You guys were talking in the driveway separately, and then we were looking at some more information, and then they showed it to me afterwards. Still, it would be definitely my last choice. Even if the wetlands weren't there, it would come up right to the front of the house, basically. So the intent of everything was keep kids and everyone in the back, if possible, if it can meet the criteria. And then the other one was kind of off to the east of that circle part of the driveway that would pretty dense on the trees, and there's a little bit more of a pitch going down towards that wetland area.
Do we have any do we have any documents of these three options, these additional ones?
Yeah, let me try to get these up. Give
And
me
the
one
doctor
second.
wants number 4, the
Yeah,
fourth
it's-
option the most.
Something came in this morning, Marianne.
So
Okay.
this isn't in order. So, and this isn't the greatest view either, but so this is where this is pre-disturbance, so it shows the actual woods here, but this is where their preferred area is for the court here. This was the second option down in this area, which also would be put in the 100-foot buffer zone here. So that was one option they were looking at. And then the other one was down here in this part. So this is what they were talking about. That shows a wooded swamp on the Mass GIS, which when I walked down there, I'm not actually sure that this is actually a wetland in here, because the lawn goes flat across and it kind of drops down into this area a little bit, and then it comes back up. So I didn't really go into this wooded area, but it didn't really look like a wetland area. I mean, it looked like there might have been wetlands down in here, but I didn't really go into this area, but I'm not actually sure there is wetlands here. So that's one thing, like, I would like to know for sure. Have somebody look into that. So the other option was here. But of course, the preferred area would be back in here where the disturbance already is.
Tell me, Jeff, where we have WS1 in the lower left-hand corner, there seems to be, short of, excluding the area that you think may not be wetlands, there seems to be a lot of area there for a tennis court. And I know it's not the most desirable, and I can understand that, but it seems to be technically feasible in the area on the left-hand side of the driveway. Am I wrong?
Possibly. If this actually isn't a wetland here, then there would be no buffer zone infringement. But-
Excuse me. Oh, I just wanted to say, I looked that up, the WS1, and it is listed under the Mass DEP wetlands site, and describes it as a deciduous forested swamp area. So
Oh.
it is
Yeah.
Okay. So,
on the wetlands. It's under wetlands.
okay. All right.
And
Then.
the proposed court that you had was taken up, I would say it was in that, over that WS1 area. And
Yeah.
there you go. So like 90% of the court looks like it was taken up by the wetlands. So that really wouldn't be a good alternative.
I do understand that Mr. Marchetti would not like to have the court in front of his house. But it seems to me that the court would fit in front of the house, closer to the driveway. Someone who knows the area can comment on that, Steve? If you move the court to the right, it would fit in, would it not?
I'll shorten it. I'd scrap the whole project.
You'd scrap, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think on the wooded swamp area, that WS1, it's likely that there is a wetland in that left side of the driveway area there in some fashion. As the commission members know, the GIS mapping is not perfect, and it may be a little bit further to the north where you have that undisturbed area, but you'd still have the buffer zone and the 50-foot no-touch zone extending into that lawn area. So I think it still would have an impact.
And on the right-hand side, do we have a diagram with the court on the right-hand side possibly? Yeah, in there.
These are, this is another view that Kara had sent me. Do you want to see the satellite image again? Let me see if I can find that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
This one?
Yeah. So what are we infringing there, Chris, Jeff?
So this is the actual wetland flagging up here in this area.
Yeah.
And then this is the 50-foot buffer zone. And then this line here is the 100-foot buffer zone.
Okay. And the wildlife easement area?
Right there.
Is this black dashed line.
That's correct.
Very similar to the 50.
So again, the negatives on this side are primarily the need to clear additional trees in the 100-foot buffer zone right up to the 50-foot no touch, where it's currently a fairly heavily wooded area for the most part. So we think that that would, since there already is that disturbance that has occurred where the court is projected to go, this would just add more to the disturbance that's already occurred. So, you know, and then there is some topographic drop as you get close to the 50-foot no-touch zone. So again, grading on that northeast side would be more significant if the court were trying to be positioned in that area.
Jeff, can you increase the size of that map so I could just the other way and roll it up just so I could see it?
Is that good?
Roll it up a little higher. Just
This way?
yes, thanks. Okay. All right.
Once again, there does seem to be room for the court in front of the house if you move it to the left. I assume that was unacceptable to the owner?
Back to the topic
Yeah, if you move it down to the left, closer to the driveway, I assume we're in a situation that it would be unacceptably placed to the owner?
still
Mr.
east
Marchetti?
of the driveway, or
Yeah, to the right of the driveway.
yeah, then this pink line I think is actually an old property line before I bought this house, I believe. But the 78 Lambert's Lane, it's a very funny property line where that part of the driveway is actually the neighbors.
Oh, yeah.
So there's we couldn't go down super far towards the main street.
I don't think you can consider this option because you are in the wetlands in the deciduous forest swamp.
No, the one that's on the screen now, I wasn't.
No.
I think Eric was talking about dropping it further south, but to the right of the driveway.
Yeah.
East,
Oh, okay.
I think.
Oh, so in this area?
Yeah.
Oh, over there.
Yep. Moving the one that's in the upper right there to the left and down closer to the driveway.
But you're still in the 100. Is that right?
Marginally. A portion of it would be, yes, Marianne.
And then he has this property line issue right here.
Yeah.
Wait, the pink's the property line?
I think that's an old one. The owner of the house I'm in now bought a little bit of that along with the field across.
Oh,
so
we definitely have to know about property lines.
Right. So
Yeah, this is just a GIS image. This isn't exact.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to the other drawings that the kind of the black and white versions,
Yep.
I think that's the property line.
Yeah, these are a little more accurate. Do you want to see this one? This is, or which one you want? I have all three.
Well, I mean, obviously they were talking about fitting it in.
Why don't you blow up that one? No, the other one, the back one, and blow it up bigger. So, okay, so the property line cuts through that, looks like a driveway, or it
Down
comes
there?
down lower.
Yeah, this is the driveway.
Jeff, can you advance that one more time back to the scene area where it was on the east side of the driveway?
That's the old property line, I believe, from.
So if you did move, I mean, there's still an enforcement issue or some type of disturbance back in the original area.
Back one, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
That's an issue still to be dealt with, Marianne.
One more.
Right. I mean, that's 30 trees cut.
There. Is it possible to rotate that court so that it's oriented northeast, southwest.
So like this way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
It seems like there's less disturbance to
line would
the
be very
existing tree line, and you might even be a little bit farther from the 50-foot zone and a little bit farther out of the 100-foot buffer.
Yep.
Right, and you said that there's a drop there close to the wildlife easement, so you'd be out of that.
Yeah, right in this area is where the topography drops. Once you get into the wood line, it kind of drops down in here.
You know, our sensitivity to encroaching marginally on the 100-foot is much less than a similar encroachment on the 50-foot buffer line, all right? So if we had to make a compromise here, putting it there and slightly encroaching on the 100-foot seems to me the option that is best, if it's acceptable to the owner of the property, Mr. Marchetti.
If we went with the last option I was talking about, where we tried to swing it and decrease the court size so that it didn't encroach on the 50, and it's back in its original, basically the original position, but shrunk down a hair and then rotated a hair. So that
Perhaps there's an opportunity there as well. There's a lot of soil that has been stripped in preparation for the solar cells or solar array that went in, that we had a conversation about on site, that you can't bring foreign soil in. However, if you could borrow from the spot on the east side of your driveway, you might be able to then recover soil and resod, or not necessarily resod, but just replace the soil that had been scraped but not stockpiled.
And this option, you would reduce the court down to 56 feet,
right,
but
and
you'd
that's,
still be right up on the 50.
yeah, that top right corner, I think we can swing up to the easement line.
Mhm.
And then I think it's just a hair outside the solar, and that moves the bottom of the court left. Oh, yeah, it is out just at the 50-foot, that peak of the 50-foot.
You would still want a variance then to work on this court, because you might be going into the 50 to create the court. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
That I
Jeff,
leave-
do you think that's what he would need?
Yeah, leave it to the experts, but they were pretty good about saying once the footprint is there, that's all they need, the court people, but this is not my specialty. Like, they don't need there's no big margin that they said that they would need.
Suppose, Mr. Marchetti, you move the court down 30 feet and moved it toward the residency, over which I think is your propane tank. Is that a little box?
Yeah, that's the buried 500-gallon.
Is that your propane tank?
Yep, 500-gallon, right?
I mean, that's easy enough moved. If you move the whole thing down closer to the garage, you would be free of the solar array, and you'd be free of all the easement and the 50-foot.
Yeah, the propane tank I've looked into with a few companies, it's actually not easy to move and bury in the region that we would be able to access the generator. So I originally was thinking of doing that. And I mean, the cost of the whole project is big. The cost of that was a lot bigger than I would have guessed for burying it.
Well,
That's too bad.
And then just, I mean, placement wise, like if there were no wetlands or any concern, it would be in the original spot.
yeah, okay.
So,
I mean,
there
if
are.
nothing's going to give, I'm not really sure if we're going to find a solution here. Chris, do you have any thoughts? Or James?
Well, I think the disturbance has already taken place. I wouldn't want to see more area disturbed out front in the 100-foot buffer. So I think I think it would be worthwhile for them to take the most recent version that Dr. Marchetti has suggested, rotating it. There's 3 foot 2 inches, I think, shown on that plan that it could be pushed over. That looks to be about exactly what the interference with the solar array is. It's, as I said, it's already on disturbed land. And then what has been disturbed obviously would need to be mitigated. Certainly not only the area, the 50, but some of the 100 as well. And I think you bring it all back to kind of a viable ecological community around the court, which is going to sit on an area that's been disturbed.
I'm not sure what that means for the solar and the tennis court. Does it fit in within the boundaries we have, Chris?
I think you can make it. I mean, if the solar is one boundary, and the animal easement and the 50 are the other boundary. If it has to be 57 foot 2 inches, or it has to be 56 feet, then that's what it is. He's got that. That's how much land he has to play with.
Okay.
I mean, that would be my opinion.
I think we're getting to the point where we are very unprofessional in designing a tennis court, Mr. Marchetti. I think we can reiterate, we are reluctant to accept any encroachment in the animal easement. We are reluctant to accept any encroachment into the 50-foot buffer zone. Full stop. 100-foot buffer zone, which is pretty much denuded and laid to waste, I think we pretty much have to accept that's the case. And that has to be mitigated and straightened out in the future, separate side of the project. But I think, having said that, it's up to you and your people to design something to fit into that, that deals with the solar array. We can spend all night sort of gesticulating on, how one of us would put the tennis court in, but, we don't have to build it. It's not our court. All right.
Can I just mention something? I just want to say that Kara is still here trying she's trying to voice her opinion here, but she wanted me to allow her to speak, but the only option I see here is to mute her. I don't know how to, if there's any other way I can give her permission. Does anybody know anything about that?
Jeff, can you hear me? Hello?
There she is.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
We hear you. You're
okay.
live.
I have dialed in several times. I apologize. I'd like to go back to the previous iterations of the plans with the courts in the front lawn area. I had a question about the positioning of the court on the left side of the lawn. And I wanted to ask if, had we moved the court to the front lawn on either side, would that actually be permitted?
I think I'd scrap the project, Kara, and we kind of addressed that. So I'd go on to the next question.
Okay. Kara, you're still on, I think.
Yes. If anyone has any questions for me, that was the only question I had.
Okay. I think you know the constraints behind the house, Mr. Marchetti. And I think it's up to you and your tennis court design people, if you want to go ahead with the project, to work within those constraints, as Chris and other people have alluded to. We can spend all night here, pushing a foot in and a foot out. But you really need some engineering people to put that together for you.
And then the drainage part of things, I think that was another concern last time. So that additional, I don't know how we do it, but additional width or depth could be built up by swinging the court a little bit in a few areas.
Yeah, I mean, the drainage itself is not an issue. Once we know where the court is positioned and the final size of the court, and I think the chairman is correct, we have a a window of where we can work. I think Mr. McFarlane had pointed out that we've got a disturbed area. If we can maximize the use of the disturbed area with proper mitigation for what has occurred and stay out of the 50-foot zone, it seems like those are the marching orders on what we have to evaluate here to bring this project to a conclusion.
Yeah. I think that's exactly it, Steve. That would be phase one. Phase two is the mitigation plan for restoring the 30 trees and other things that have taken place in the buffer zone. And I think also in the wildlife easement area, which we have to come back and address separately.
Okay.
Or as the next stage of this project.
Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
To be continued. We need to have a date. And I'm wondering what sort of timing you would look at within your team, Mr. Marchetti, Steve.
So our next meeting is 2 weeks from now on the 22nd. I don't know if is 2 weeks enough time?
Yes, that's perfect.
Yeah, I think that works. I think we have to just make a final decision on what Dr. Marchetti can live with for a court size. That will then give us our maximum option on repositioning, and then we can present an option for the commission's consideration at that point.
Okay. Jeff, we continue it to the 22nd then?
Yes.
Great. Gentlemen, anything else you'd like to add? If not, we'll move on to our next project.
Oh, I appreciate the time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Kara, sorry you couldn't get on for so long there.
No problem. Thank you.
The hand just went up.
Okay.
Jeff, the hand just went up.
I think that was Kara again.
No, it says Karina Martinez.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to find out who she is? Jeff, or ask her to identify herself, please?
Yeah, Karina, can you just type into the Q&A just your name?
I put her on. I allowed her to talk. You have to unmute though, please. There. Karina, can you speak?
Yes.
There you
Hi,
go.
I'm the neighbor of, I'm at 175 Hull Street. I abut Mr. Marchetti's property on the north side.
Okay. Okay. Would you like to make some comments?
Yes, this is, someone else is on the line too. This is Susan Hoadley. I'm also the abutter to the north of Dr. Marchetti. So we are the neighbor, together we are the neighbors that abut the project to the north.
Fine, if you'd like to state your case or whatever your position is, we're here.
Okay, it is our, we are professionals that work in town, and as we've asked the board before, is the board comfortable with proceeding with projects that go out of sequence in this way, going forward as a precedent? Basically, we're considering building on undisturbed land that was disturbed for the purpose of creating the project. So it's sort of a tail wagging the dog kind of a situation. So I'd just like the board to comment on that before they go much further and allow Mr. Marchetti to pay engineers and designers to develop something that they're not comfortable setting a precedent for.
Anybody want to make any comments? Chris?
Well, I think that I understand your feeling that this is kind of the tail wagging the dog. We kind of look at this a little bit differently. We understand that that a violation has occurred. However, we also understand that if permitting were requested prior to any work going in for the solar array, we would be entertaining this project in very much the same way. The difference would be that we would have a accurate count of vegetation what's out there. The 50-foot buffer, as Eric has mentioned is really sacred ground, and we do only on rare and unusual circumstance allow for work to be done within the 50-foot buffer. The 100-foot buffer is really an area that is at our discretion. So the question really for all the commissioners on this is whether or not we are, if it were in a pristine condition, would we in fact allow there to be court built into this area? And that's going to be a determination for each commissioner as to whether or not they feel that because this has been disturbed, it changes one's opinion, or whether or not you look to it as if it were undisturbed, and whether you feel comfortable making that decision. So yes, it is after the fact. We take that, we take all of it into consideration, whether it's after the fact or whether we had been here kind of at the beginning. And as this develops, we will all determine for ourselves whether or not we think this is appropriate to go into the 100-foot buffer or not.
Well stated. Karina, I believe you are an architect. Is that correct?
Yes, we both are. Susan and I both are.
In Cohasset?
Yes, we have an office in the village.
We have, this is Susan Hudley. We have 7 active projects going on right now.
Okay, yeah. So you're very professional, very well established. I'm sure you're well aware, and you have benefited from some buildings that have been within the 100-foot buffer zone, but not in the 50.
Well, to be honest with you, we've only benefited when they were clear, because we were with the assumption that if it was not clear, you're likely not to have it approved. But if it's already disturbed, then you stand a chance. So this is an education for us tonight to learn that we've had more latitude than what we originally thought.
I would say it is, we work with precedent. We have regulations. They are in some cases rather vague. We work with precedent and what I would call how things are done in the past, and we have to live with the policies that our predecessors have put in place. And in general, we're willing to compromise somewhat on the 100-foot area, but hold religiously to the inviolability of the 50-foot buffer zone. That seems to be how policies have evolved in Cohasset. And that's been established for a long period of time. And if any of the commissioners would have a view on that, I'd like to hear it. But that seems to be the end, the kind of the real world compromise that we seem to be making often. We don't necessarily like it, and very often we have problems with the 100-foot. But if we have to compromise on something in this lovely town, it would be some building in the 100-foot, as long as the people stay exclusively out of the 50-foot. All right.
Just to add to that, it does disturb me that this property was stripped. And while we are discussing this property of possibly putting in a court, it's not been approved. And we are just discussing it. But I think there still is the discussion of a violation of an enforcement act of the stripping of the 30 trees. So I would not encourage your clients or the doctor or anybody to consider strip mining a property and then thinking it's okay and that we would approve that. So the 50-foot buffer zone is definitely a no-touch inner buffer. 100 foot we have jurisdiction on, but I would always be careful in any property being built in either of those zones and look at it very carefully.
That's why I had Jeff come out and we walked the property ahead of time. So part of it was my not misunderstanding or not being completely aware of all the issues that now I'm very well aware of.
Yeah. Ms. Martinez, it's worthwhile, I think, to say that there are 100-foot buffer zone issues here we'll take care of. And then there is the 50-foot buffer issue. And I believe violations in the wildlife easement, which we're going to, some trees being cut, which we will have to deal with. And this will be part of the project. And I would call it the cleaning up of the project as we go along here. So they're not being swept aside, all right? They're just the kind of things we deal with probably at the end of the project. But they haven't been forgotten, and they're still on the table as far as I'm concerned. Okay. Anybody else?
Eric, I would, the only thing I would add to Karina is that we haven't made a decision. We just have been contemplating some of the changes as Dr. Marchetti put forward. We have a lot more thinking to do on this.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
And let me just say, we don't really have a Cohasset policy. We have 7 conservation commissioners who are charged with reading the regulations, processing it themselves, and taking a decision on their own behalf. We then vote at the end of the day. What I say is no more important than Chris or Mary Ann or Kathleen or anybody else, all right? So there are 7 independent individuals who will have their own personal opinion, their own input to the final decision, so. Okay. Fine, thank you very much. We'll move on to our next project, which is NOI 2005. We do not have to read this one in. It's Howard 104 Howard Gleason Road, invasive plant removal. We've been here before, and this is a continuation from ongoing discussions which took place on the 23rd of July of this year. And I see Mr. Cavanero there. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Eric, members of the commission. I came in a little bit late tonight, but I will say, I think it was mentioned earlier, but the link was not operable from the agenda. So I think that was part of the issue that people may have had getting into the Zoom call. So I had to actually get through a different account for Zoom. Just usually it works, no problem. But
John, I'm sorry, could you explain what was not operable?
the link on the agenda was not operable. So you know.
You mean the one that was on the one click type thing?
Correct.
So that's the Zoom link and not the phone link? The
Yes.
phone number?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's why folks were able to dial in. There may have been an issue with the dial-in link as well, if they call in with their computer. But that's the first time I've had an issue with your link from the agenda.
And I'll just a problem that I had over the last month, just unable to get in. It kept saying meeting in progress, or this meeting's been canceled, or all kinds of crazy messages, and you just couldn't use the link on the agenda. It didn't work.
Yeah.
I think one of the things we have to become familiar with is what do we do with participants who wanted to be part of the meeting, who couldn't get in, we didn't know were there, couldn't voice their opinion, and we voted and took a decision without them involved because of the technology problem. There's something that we have to work out to smooth that situation over, because I don't feel comfortable just excluding people like the person earlier tonight who couldn't get in, then take a decision. When we take a decision, we like to consider it's final, but well, you know, this person couldn't get in probably for reasons that had nothing to do with his technology or anything else. It probably was the system was you know, just not going to allow it. So.
Yeah, I just want to add to that too. Sorry, but Kara from before, when she was trying to get on, she said she was typing in the Q&A and that it wasn't working either. So she said she was trying to use the Q&A, and we've had nobody. Actually, when Trish came in first, I could see what she typed in the Q&A, but nobody has typed anything in since. And Kara said that she was trying to type in it and nothing's come up. So there's an issue with that too. But
so
anyhow.
I didn't mean to.
That's all right. Good to hear. John, you're on.
That sidebar, but when we last left this project, so just to recap real quick, this is essentially a Phragmite removal project at the end of Howard Gleason Road. on a property that spans between Howard Gleason Road and Whale Meadow. We conducted a site visit. We had 2 hearings with our ecological consultant, Land Stewardship, Inc. They were not able to join us this evening. And in fact, they did deliver a sort of late an updated habitat management plan that we did submit late this afternoon. So I apologize for delivering materials late. But what I tried to do earlier was send over a safety data sheet on a type of herbicide that is a non-toxic organic certified herbicide for the eradication of the Phragmite. When we last talked about this, it was clear that the option with glyphosate and the rodeo was not going to be a viable option to treat the Phragmite at this location. The commission made that clear. We left the meeting with, why don't you consider if a mowing campaign would be amenable, and come back with any additional thoughts. So we went back, Chris Politan from Land Stewardship did some more research and talked to some other colleagues in the industry, and they came up with this product, Avenger, for consideration, which, as I mentioned, is an organic, non-toxic option. It's been around, as far as I can see, for about 10 years when it was registered with the EPA. It is a citrus-based product that has citrus oil as essentially the active ingredient, and it's been reported to be much more safe with human habitation, animals, and it doesn't have the same history as the glyphosate. So the thought here was, as we talked about extensively at the last couple of hearings, our goal is to come up with a plan that works. That's the important thing here. And the intent here is to address the protected interests in the bylaw, which is really 3 areas: aesthetics, recreational interests, and the protection of wildlife habitat. And what these stands, this monoculture of Phragmites at this location, really prevents and prohibits the ability for the native plants to thrive, the habitat to be in its best position, to grow and thrive as well. And it certainly takes away from the aesthetics of being able to enjoy the natural beauty of the surrounding area, with that being the harbor for the most part. And also recreational interest for the owners to be able to access the waterfront sections of their property down on the Whale Meadow side. So as we notice when we walk the site, it's very thick. These Phragmite stands come in, they create sort of a bamboo forest, and it just becomes impassable. So the mowing campaign is something that certainly we'd be amenable to do on a multiple stage program during the year. But the thought was, if we could present this as an alternative to the glyphosate, this Avenger option, this organic method, then that's what we wanted to talk about tonight, if that would be something that the commission would have any interest in discussing further.
Jeff, anything you would like to say at this stage?
Yeah, I don't really know much about this product either. But John, I was looking at the MSDS that you provided. So I know it's classified as like non-toxic, vapor harmful, skin irritant, but it does mention, excuse me, it does mention it's acute aquatic toxicity and acute chronic aquatic toxicity, sorry. And so then it says over here, very toxic to aquatic life with long-lasting effects. So my question just would be, and I know you probably don't know, and I understand there's really nothing living in the water there right now because there's literally no room. But so just like, what would the long-lasting effects be? And that's my primary question. And would that time frame extend to the, how far does that time frame extend to the point where, once this area is rehabilitated or eradicated from the Phragmites, will that still have lingering effects? I guess that's something I'd like to know.
Okay. I don't have an answer for
Yeah.
that. But I'm not sure if that's something that could be monitored through an ongoing process with a wildlife specialist, that we could set up a campaign of sort of a baseline testing that was carried throughout the life of the project. And then we could present monitoring reports to sort of do an evaluation pre-work to see exactly what does exist in the areas, and then do a monitoring campaign similar to that you would do with vegetation.
I was spent not a few hours, hour and a half, doing my net-based research, which actually was very helpful in the case of Roundup. There was a tremendous amount of very good data out there. A lot of European data from the countries that had banned Roundup, and other countries that had allowed it, and you got a good point of view as to the efficacy, toxicity, and usefulness of Roundup. I couldn't find anything, John, not one iota of information, user information, scientific analytical information on Avenger, or of the the limonene or whatever the active ingredient is. I couldn't find anything. Almost like it, no one's ever used it. No one's bothered to write about it. I found a few companies who were promoting it, but I couldn't find any user information. I think that's for us. If we wanted to go ahead with this, we would have to feel comfortable that it could be used safely. I couldn't find anything out there, John. So it seems to me to be a rather maybe a rarity of a product that's not used very often, or is very expensive and discourages people from using it.
Well, it is very expensive, and that was something that was probably a priority. When we asked the ecological expert the first go around to look at this, they came up with a sort of an economically feasible and something that was effective as a solution with rodeo. And it is industry wide. It's used industry wide. This is a much more expensive option. It has been around, as I said, for about 10 years at least, that I can see from their EPA registration. It's good that you didn't find any bad news about it.
No, I didn't find anything bad. No, you're right there. No news is good news.
Yeah, well, I did find actually through one of the distributors a rating. And so it got a 3.6 rating out of 5. So it was about 2/3 of the respondents, and it was about over 300 respondents with reviews. I think it was through a Home Depot purchase site. So they had over 300, and I went through the reviews, and it was essentially folks that liked it were had pets. They liked the fact that it was friendly with pets. It seemed like it was a more residential use. They liked it because it was effective. Folks didn't like it because it was expensive and it didn't seem to work. Folks that it didn't happen to work, whether they had old products or not. But like I said, it was about 2/3 were happy, 1/3 were not happy. A lot of decent reviews, over 300 reviews.
The knockout punch of Roundup, the reason it was so popular, aside from the toxicity issues, was that it was systemic and it killed the root structure very effectively. You could spray a plant, it would kill the surface activity, surface branch, leaves, foliage, and it would also over a period of 4 or 5 days be absorbed into the root structure. And in most cases, you are really assured that the whole plant would die. The Avenger, and there's certain words, I don't know what the vocabulary is for these systemics that kill the whole plant. The Avenger we're talking about, where does this thing rank in terms of how it kills the the plants are being sprayed. Is it a surface material, or is it kill the whole plant, John?
Well, I think it's a surface material, but they're gonna treat it like they would with the other instruments. So they mow it, and then they use the instruments that are in that habitat management plan to wipe the root systems literally individually, like they were planning to do with the other. So it penetrates the root system. It seems like it's more used for broadleaf applications. I didn't see a lot for this specific Phragmite type stand, drop it in the root. It seems like it's more for surface weeds, like I said, more of a residential application. But I can certainly do some more digging and try to find some actual real life examples of it, and maybe some contractors that have used it.
So John, what I read was, and they were explaining its use on broadleaves, and they say what it does is it basically burns the cuticle, which is kind of a waxy coating on the leaf or the stem, and thereby the plant dehydrates itself. So whether or not that, the straw-like makeup of Phragmites has a cuticle that, and whether or not a simple spraying would destroy it enough, I mean, I guess it would have to be tested to see whether it actually worked.
Yeah, so one thought here would be maybe to try it in a certain area as sort of a test model. We could proceed with the mowing and pick a patch that was amenable. We could work with Jeff and, like I said, do some more research with a habitat or wildlife expert and have them as part of this a monitoring campaign. This, as we presented and it's still included in the habitat management plan, this is a 3-year process that this takes. The mowing, and along with the application of, if we do end up proceeding with this organic based citrus based herbicide, it takes a few years for this to take hold. So I'm not sure if it would be possible. I'm quite honestly very curious to see how this would work, and it would be educational to see if we could try a test area.
John, can you remind me, by removing the Phragmites, how does that improve the wildlife area?
Well, right now it's a monoculture vegetation. So that means that it deprives every other type of vegetation any possibility of existing. I mean, you saw when we were walking through those stands, that's it. That's all that's there, besides trash that it collects from, on the beach side. So there's no habitat value that, we don't have animals coming to the Phragmite to pick berries and eat birds. It's not bayberry. It's not all the plants that birds and other animals want to go to and create nests and quite frankly repopulate. It's just an invasive weed that has no value from a habitat standpoint, nor does it have any aesthetic value. I mean, as far as enjoying the adjacent resource areas, which is really a protected interest in our bylaw, as well as I mentioned, recreational, to be able to walk, to go to the shoreline, or to enjoy, watching the wildlife in the area. It's these stands of frags that don't do anything besides blow in the wind.
Yeah. Does it remove nitrate?
Pardon me?
It doesn't remove nitrate.
Phragmite?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I mean, it must consume some. It needs it for growth. I'm just wondering whether groundwater or surface water discharging near the Gulf or the harbor or any of these places, whether it's effective at removing nitrate.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I don't know.
There must be something good about it.
Something good about it? I'm not sure there is much good about it, actually.
Tom, here's
Tom,
the
What's
Phragmites.
good about it? You want to know what's good
Phragmites
about it?
eliminate native plants by forming large single species stands. They reduce the amount of diversity of food sources available to wildlife. They increase the risk intensity of wildfire. They obstruct views at waterfront properties, which I think your client might want. Blocks drainage and irrigation ditches and clogs drain fields and slows water movement and increases mosquito breeding activity.
No.
They're
It's
bad
called-
actors.
Doesn't sound good.
Yeah, Tom, what's it good for? If you go to England, Middle England, you look at the thatched roofs, that's all Phragmites. You go to the west of France, in Brittany, in Normandy, you see thatched roofs, that's Phragmites. And they desire it over there, and people are pleading for it. I wish somehow we could cut it and ship our Phragmites over to the old world, but they have their own quantities. So, and they use it for roofing. But that's about the only.
Don't they also burn it off at the end of the season in the south of France?
They possibly do, yeah, very easily. From a
Well,
wild
plantation.
who benefits from it? Bees benefit from it. It does flower. All right. Birds benefit. Some birds inhabit it. Things like muskrats and below ground mammals can spend time in it. But if you want to have a biodiverse environment, Phragmites is the kiss of death for that area. All right. So the problem we have is how do we get rid of it without using something which we're banned from using, which is a herbicide. I know how people prevent Phragmites from populating their lawns, and along with Japanese knotweed, is through regular mowing. Regular mowing removes the energy from photosynthesis. You're continually, as you mow it, removing the chlorophyll and the chemical process. And what's in the ground is not enough to maintain the Phragmites long term, and eventually it dies back and dies. So possibly the easiest way, John, is what other people have done, which is mechanical or maybe burning. Burning is used quite often, controlled burning to get rid of it. And I don't know how that would fit together into a program in Cohasset or not, but if we really we're serious, I think, about putting together a program to remove the Phragmites, I think mechanical clearing would have to be a big portion of that. That's my intuitive thought. What do other people think? Kathleen, do you have any thoughts on it? Sorry for putting you on the spot.
That's okay. No, I think if you can go a more natural route, such as the mowing or the burning, I would do that. I would opt for that as opposed to any kind of chemicals. And when you say, when you ask about the long-term effects to long-lasting effects, we really don't know right now, right? So you can't really make a judgment about that. And I would err on the side of caution and do something more natural, such as the mowing or the fire, which I didn't actually think about, the fire, but that would make sense also. That's my 2 cents.
John, can you come back to us with some scientific data on this, or just examples of other properties or locations that have used the Avenger product?
So come back with some locations.
Yeah.
I don't have any tonight.
Well, perhaps I don't know.
I'd be happy to try to find some locations and some. I reached out to a couple of landscape contractors and they were not experienced in it. So
Yeah.
and I didn't have a lot of time to do that. So I would be happy to what I'd like to do is to bring this to a close, because we've sort of missed the opportunity earlier this year, but there is an opportunity to do sort of an initial mowing in November. That would be the first thing to do. And then we would come back to this in the spring. So if possible, if I could continue this to the next meeting in October, that would give me at least enough time That's the 22nd,
Yes.
to either put some closure on this option, or even you have this pretty much material. I could supplement this and sort of come to a closure on the mowing and more of a mechanical practice, and hopefully we can come to a closure on the next hearing, if that's.
Let me ask a question, commissioners. Is there anybody here who would be opposed to having an effort at mechanical removal of this large stand of Phragmites fairly soon? And then in the spring, in the meantime, John and his people would put together an ongoing plan after that, because the mechanical removal is the traditional way of dealing with this. Anybody have any thoughts on that, Chris?
I don't know enough about it to comment at this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what John just proposed, was that, he would come back in 2 weeks with the proposal to do the removal mechanically while, looking further into this Avenger product and coming back with more information about it, if it looks like a viable option in the spring.
I can do that.
Are we talking about two different things? John, you're talking mowing, right? And Eric, you're
Yes.
actually talking about digging it up, right?
No, I'm talking about mowing.
Mowing.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, all right.
Strimmer, however you do it.
Yeah, well, they have those lightweight
strimmer's
mowers
good.
that go over to try to limit the disturbance of the soil. That's
Yeah.
part of the habitat management plan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of how we left, I thought, the last meeting, that in general, the commission was not adverse to that.
I think that is the only established way of treating it right now, John. I wouldn't say it's surefire, because all these, Phragmites control programs typically go on for 2 or 3 years, and people lose their sense of endeavor and they back off, and then it comes back. But people who have, from what I understand, done 5 or 6 years of continual mechanical removal have beaten most of it back, all right, and have made substantial progress. So
What
I think
if we left it at, we just proceed with the mowing then? And I mean, if I'm not going to find enough evidence that this organic option, I just don't know that I'm going to come back with, honestly, enough study.
Suppose we made a motion to proceed with the mowing this fall, with the intent of John putting together a more elaborate mowing or mechanical control program for the spring. Is that something that we could work with, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be an option that, the project could proceed with the condition that no herbicide be involved. But then there's the issue too. The other part of the project was the
trees,
the revegetation in the front with the cedars. I don't know, John, when were you thinking about planting those trees?
I'd like to expedite that this fall as well, if possible.
Okay, so
it would be a springtime.
So the Phragmite removal would be the mowing in the front across from the yacht club, and in the back, and simultaneously you would be planting or replacing the cedars this fall.
Yes.
Okay.
Cedars, and the thought was to mix up cedars, Atlantic white cedars, and some white swamp oaks.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's okay.
Actually, just reading the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, they said that fire wasn't a good option because it promotes the spread of it, actually. So I would suggest that fire is out.
Okay.
Eric, and just
I think John and his people need to come back in the spring. All right. Or comprehensive program. But Marianne, are you okay with going with our fairly rugged mechanical cutting program right now?
That would be a mowing plan then?
Yeah, it's mowing or strimmers. I mean, they have specialized equipment to do this. All right. That's to say yes, we have to say we're willing to take a step forward with an established technology to
Well,
control.
what kind of equipment would it be? Because could it
Low,
damage the
low
wetlands?
pressure mowers that they have, low pressure lawn mowers.
Lower pressure.
And, yeah.
But you'd only say yes, Marianne, if you agreed that it's a problem we're willing to mechanically deal with in the future. If you don't want to do that, then you can't really go ahead with any mowing at all or any mechanical solution right now, I don't think.
Well, I think in our bylaws, it says that herbicides aren't, we don't allow herbicides, so that's why I'm kind of, I'm interested in the Adventure Organic non-toxic product, but I guess that's a herbicide. I would go with the mowing for now. I'm concerned how many times that would be needed. It's just this one time, or is this going to be a plan going?
I think
it's a plan mow. You come back. It's an annual.
At least twice a year for the next 5 years, Marianne, to beat it. If we're serious about that, I believe. John, do you disagree?
Yeah, no, I don't.
Chris, what do you think of having such a control plan?
I think it's probably worth an experiment. Yeah, I think it's worth trying.
And then so we're going to do this, or is this what we're suggesting? 5 years of a mowing plan. That's maybe twice a season or once a season, and then excluding the Avenger Organic herbicide, not even pursuing that.
Right, until we can come up with better evidence. If we wanted to come back with an amendment and there's been some more testing a history that's been established, then we would come back in that time frame.
Well, then I would be okay with it as long as it's a low weight equipment that's not to damage the wetland soils.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we mark out where they're going to mow too.
Yeah.
Like, where is the property? Where I want it clearly marked where they're going to mow.
I think on the map, John, you already have an indication marked out where the invasives are. And I think your marking of invasives is not just Phragmites. I think it includes the Japanese knotweed. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was pretty much all the invasives in there.
Yeah. And it'd be a similar sort of treatment for the Japanese knotweed, Marianne, I believe, or commissioners. Mm-hmm. Jeff, what do we need? Do we need a motion, or where are we going from here?
You're muted.
Jeff, you're
muted.
Yep. Sorry, I had too many windows open. So the other thing too, I think we should address is because this whole thing originated from an enforcement action for the removal of the cedars across from the yacht club. I think another condition should be we should set a time frame for when those replacement trees should be installed, just so that doesn't get away from us. I think that should be one of the conditions. So I just wanted to discuss that for a second too.
How about this?
Wait, Eric, before you go on, John, one of the concerns from what I've read, what you're trying to do is you're trying to rob the roots of kind of their energy source. So you continually cut any new growth, and that over time robs the roots. But what's standing right now is a big seed source. So how do we limit the seed source now, as well as moving into the spring when you start to cut new growth? Should the plan really start immediately? So that I don't know when the seed is viable. I assume it's now while the plumes are on. They may have already dropped all their seed already. So
yeah, that's why now is November is when they typically cut. November, June, September. That's usually early, sort of late spring, early fall is when they do it. But November is a good time they say the first cut would be in November.
And that material would be left or be removed?
It's left.
So the seed in theory has already fallen.
John, why is it left?
It just biodegrades and then they come back and cut it up again.
Okay. If you, yeah, but you're leaving all the seed there. But I suppose if you gathered it up, you'd still lose the seed, I suppose. Is that the philosophy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Chris? Okay.
Doesn't Phragmites primarily spread through rhizomes?
Yes.
I mean, is seed a big issue?
Well, it must be a big enough issue because, it's always moving, it certainly shows up in new areas. So, I mean, it's not, I think it's kind of a 50-50 type of thing. It's got to get established, but once it does, the rhizomes start.
Research. It's rhizomes. It's the things below rhizomes. There's another word for it, a deep root structure that it spreads, and it spreads via seed and also vegetative cuttings. All right, just like with Japanese knotweed. The biggest way that Japanese knotweed is propagated in Cohasset is when the big cutting machines go out and cut it on the sides of the road, and you leave these little 6-inch stubs that go down into the drains, and they vegetate, and new plants are growing. So that's the reason I question about leaving the Phragmites on the ground, but apparently that's how it's done, Tom. So. Are we ready to make a motion to move ahead here? Anybody? Anything else to say?
So,
Okay, Eric,
time frame, do you want to say April 1st at the latest?
For what?
For the replanting?
Why not November 1st? You're better off getting the trees in this year, I think, John. Chris? If they can find them?
It's a little tight.
Yeah, it may be difficult to find them at this point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
A little late.
Plus, I mean, in order to replant those, you're going to have to disturb an area in order to remove the Phragmites from that area, correct?
Right.
So, and I would imagine you'd want to do a big enough area that the Phragmites doesn't just come right back in and choke that plant.
Right.
So.
The trees were growing in the middle of the Phragmites, John?
Yeah. That's where they were. That's why some of them were dead. Some of them were.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was. I think for the replanting, probably by like May 1st, I think, because springtime.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, the spring.
Okay, spring.
That's
I emphasize the point now, but if you can't find the trees and the workers to do it, John, you should wait until the spring. All right, so.
So was May 1st the agreed date to have the plants installed by?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have a plant list of what's being?
Yeah, I was planning to Atlantic white cedars and white swamp oaks. That's what pretty much was there.
Do you know how many?
15.
What size, John?
Well, they were, Sylvan they range from 3 to 10 gallons, depending on.
That's it?
How many trees were removed there? How many?
There were 10 stumps.
The cedars, 10 stumps.
Yeah, a couple oaks and.
How wide were they?
Some of them were dead.
Or Jeff, do you remember that? Like how wide they were?
They ranged. They were 4 to 8 inches.
John, the site plan that I have that you submitted before, it says minimum 3-inch caliper.
Okay. So cedars are tough to get 3-inch.
Yeah,
like 7 to 8 foot. I think
it says proposed native tree to be 3-inch caliper minimum at time of planting.
Yeah, that's our standard.
Yeah.
Detail.
Okay.
So the oaks, would you agree, Chris? The cedars are going to be more of a height. then
Yeah, but you're gonna be pretty close on that. I mean,
Yeah.
I would think you're gonna be in the ballpark for something. I mean,
I don't want to have to cut them out of the ground and then wait. And I just want to be able to get them, in a pot that we can plant.
well,
How do you keep them from being overwhelmed, John, by the Phragmites?
Keep cutting the Phragmite.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point. That's, that probably why some of those trees were dead.
Well, and chances are the trees were there before the Phragmites got established, and then the Phragmites came and choked off their growth. So
Again,
success is maybe
that's the
long
premise of this whole project, is to try to establish those cedar forests.
so John, how big is the overall area of clearing?
So there's 3 different areas. They total they're a little over an acre total.
Yeah.
Does anybody need to see the site plan again?
No, I was just wondering.
No.
It's a very detailed site plan.
So can we make a motion then to have them replant the cedar trees by May 1st and do a mowing plan now?
Yeah, the mowing plan is already part of the proposal.
Yep.
I just want to recommend 3 additional conditions. Obviously, 1, that no herbicide use is approved. 2nd, that no heavy equipment is to be used. And that the replication trees be installed by May 1st, 2021.
And the heavy equipment, you're talking about the mowing equipment, Jeff?
Just any heavy equipment in at all.
Fine.
Excluding the mowers, of course.
Yeah, well, they're not heavy equipment. Yeah, they're just,
I'd like to add one more, Jeff. I think if this is successful after, I don't know, maybe the second growing season, but there's no sign of kind of a native flora kind of establishing itself. Can we look at the idea of actually creating some kind of a cut through the Phragmite? I'm just wondering, is it, it's possible that the Phragmites is so dense that you cut it and nothing can kind of reestablish until it could be 10 years before that whole root mass decomposes enough to allow other things to establish themselves.
Yeah, from what I've read, Chris, you're facing anywhere from a foot to 3 feet of solid root mass.
Well, that's what I'm concerned about. Do we end up just with what looks like a mowed cornfield, and it doesn't, in any foreseeable future, it doesn't start to regenerate itself. So I'm just wondering, if after 2 years there's no visible sign of something regenerating, does the owner have a responsibility to go in there and
I don't know,
create pockets just like he's going to do for the trees, and actually start getting some other stuff in there?
We talked in earlier sessions on this subject about coming in and making mechanical removal of the Phragmites. And that was somewhat horrific in terms of going into the resource area and dredging, all right, up large chunks of the Phragmites roots. And what we're talking about is really doing that on a minor way. Maybe Tom, you have something, because you have some experience in this area, all right? Maybe you can give us some views on that. You're muted, Tom.
Not really. I've been around Phragmites for a long time, but never tried to remove it. I've watched people try to remove it with backhoes and stuff like this, and I think it's here to stay. Honestly, there's an awful lot on the web about this, how to control it, and it doesn't look like anything's been successful.
There are 2 ways I've seen to control it. All right, one is to infuse it with continuous salt water. It cannot grow in salinity similar to what you'd find in the ocean. There's a break point between brackish water and salt water. It exists in certain brackish waters, then you get to a certain level of salinity and it dies off. And a lot of projects to control Phragmites relate to increasing the flow of salt water into the area. Alas, we discussed before about dredging out the channel and allowing the water to flow in, but apparently the area is so high now the water wouldn't flow in if that happened without really going in and doing a lot of dredging. So,
John, are there mosquito ditches there?
No.
Because that's one of the things that's recommended, to fill those in, so that doing the opposite actually of what you're suggesting, Eric. You want the tide to, you want the salt water to stay in there as long as possible. You don't want it to be able to drain. And I think the threshold somewhere around 15 parts per thousand, something like about half the salinity of seawater.
are we solving your issue, Chris?
No, I think we're just going to end up with what's going to look like a mowed cornfield. I don't know.
Well, we'll see.
I kind of give this, Eric, if I can, I want to compare this to the next the next hearing we're going to have, and that is the 589 Jerusalem Road, where we have a condition that we're just so uncertain of an outcome that we have asked that it be done in kind of almost like a test zone first, so that the whole area doesn't just kind of become something that's not sustainable. And so I'm just wondering, is this a case also where we just let it, for an acre, do we just let them go at it? And do they give up 5 years from now because they're tired of it, or does it just be a mowed cornfield or Phragmites field forever? Because the mass is already there.
I think if we revisit it in 2 years, we're still going to see the Phragmites trying to struggle through it. You need the 5 years to keep mowing it.
Right, but what I'm saying, so if it's 5 years, I mean, that's it. It's going to be just mowed Phragmites for 5 years, and then how long after that before anything else actually kind of naturalizes? And when it naturalizes, it's going to be bittersweet and wisteria and a couple other invasives, or how, or is actually something something good going to come of all this kind of disturbance? That's the question.
I think that's kind of hard to tell, but I think it's, would be worth the effort to, worth the effort. I mean, can't control nature in every aspect, but if, something does come back and regrow, then great. If not, then, they made an effort. I don't really know if there'd be any harm in the meantime by mowing it.
There's always the option 2 or 3 years from now of putting together a project, organizing a project, and having certain areas dug out with a backhoe. And all you do is you take the Phragmites root out. You don't dig out the soil, and you don't clear it, and you replant it with the natives you're talking about, Chris. All right.
So I guess that's what I'm saying, is that could we have a condition that says that at some point, if nothing is naturally revegetating this, or naturally coming in to compete with what's left of the Phragmites, can there be a condition that the applicant needs to have a revegetation plan for the area, or a partial naturalization plan or something?
I think
if
that would be the good point. We ask other people to do that.
Jeff, what are you saying?
I think, at that point, it would just be abandon it and let the Phragmites grow back, and you'll be right back to where we are. The order conditions is good for 3 years. If they're showing progress and they want to continue, they'll have to, come back for an extension, at which point they can, update the commission on what exactly is happening out there, why the order conditions should be extended, because they're showing progress. I would think just let them have the 3 years, and that the order conditions will last. And if it's worth their while, that because they're seeing progress to continue, then they'll come back for an extension.
Okay.
Different owners in 2 years, and then they'll have.
I think the future of this project, Chris, is so uncertain that, irrespective of what we put down, we're probably going to be wrong. But yeah, I can live with a 3-year project, and then we review it in 3 years' time, Chris. I don't think we're going to be dredging and doing any of that stuff within 3 years. I think that would be premature. Jeff, what do we need to do? Do we need an order? Do you need a motion?
Yeah, so we would need to issue an order of conditions with the 3 additional conditions: that there be no herbicide use as approved at the project, no heavy equipment is to be used, and the replication trees will be installed by May 1st, 2021.
Okay.
And then we would also need a variance for work within the resource area.
Okay. Eric Eisner makes a motion that we issue the order of conditions for the project, which is, what is it, number NOI 2005. All right, where we'll continue without the use of any herbicides. All right. We will proceed with the mechanical mowing. And what was the last one, Jeff? The third thing?
Well, I had mentioned no heavy equipment use and replication trees to be installed by May 1st, 2021.
And replication trees to be installed by May 2021. Is there a second? No
Second.
Okay. Let's vote on it. All those in favor, we'll go down and vote in alphabetical order. Kathy?
Aye.
Aye. Patricia?
I'm, can I abstain, Eric? I'm sorry, John. I'm just kind of, I can't decide what I feel in terms of which is the better option to hold or to move forward. So for that reason, I think I'm going to abstain on this one.
We'll want to abstain. Who's next? Chris?
I say nay.
Nay. Okay. Who's next? James?
James Rosebach, aye.
Marianne Weatherald?
I feel the same as Patricia. I was going to abstain on this one. I'm just not sure what's the right decision. And I feel like there has to be some kind of natural planting plan in this. There's something missing.
Okay, we're in the middle of the vote now. All right, I understand your concerns. Yay or nay, or do you abstain? You abstain?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I vote in favor, which makes it, let me see here. I think I didn't do a very good job of adding this up. 2 against, 1 abstain, and 2 in favor. I vote in favor.
3 in favor.
Yeah.
3 in favor.
3 in favor. Does it pass, Jeff?
Yes.
3, 1, 2.
Yes.
Yep.
It passes?
Passes.
Okay. Thank you. We go ahead.
Then we need the vote for a variance.
Eric Eisner proposes, makes a motion to grant a variance to work in the buffer zone in the resource area as part of this NOI. Those in favor? I'll go through once again our voting. I vote in favor of it. Kathy?
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Aye. Patricia?
I'm continuing with my abstaining.
Abstain? Okay. Chris?
Nay.
Nay. James?
James Rosebach, aye.
Aye. Marianne?
Abstain.
Abstain. Eric's aye, so it's 3, 2, 1. It passes the variance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Heaven knows where we're going to be a year from now. Okay.
Sorry for the late night.
Thank you, John.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, John.
Moving along, we have RDA 19-11 589 Jerusalem Road. Most of us are quite familiar with this project. Maybe that's the worst part of it. Okay, but it's been going on for quite a while. Jeff, could you let anybody in who's in the audience who'd like to join us?
Yes, I just did.
Okay. And who do we have to present on behalf of the applicant? Steve?
Yes, this is Steve Ivas, professional wetland scientist. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, commissioners and staff. I'm representing the Homeowners Association, including the Bernsons at 589 Jerusalem Road. I have a very short presentation. I'm going to talk about results after the visit of the 22nd. Some questions were asked then. Then I'd like to review the history and future and then make a request of you, very simply. So I had a chance to answer the question. If Jeff, you could put up figure number 1, please. Is that possible?
Yeah, just give me 1 minute. If you have it, you can share your screen, Steve. It'll be a minute.
I'm sorry, I don't have it on this computer.
Okay.
In any case, figure 1, I created a graphic showing the original Shannon mitigation trees and what happened to those. And then note that there were also other trees. In fact, there were 11 other trees planted by the residents in addition to the Shannon mitigation trees. Okay. And figure 1, if you happen to see that, did you all take a look at that on the website? By any chance?
I don't have it in front of me now, unfortunately. Jeff, any luck?
Yep, I'm fine in it.
Good.
Why don't we wait a second, Steve, or talk to something else in the meantime?
Sure. What I'll just note on this plan is that there are lots of little colored dots. And if I may, I've got my mouse over them. Jeff, can you point to the color? The colored dots indicate all the trees that are there presently, including the mitigation trees, as well as the additional trees that were planted by the residents. Okay, and so we've accounted for all of those. That's just what I want to say on that. Are there any questions about those?
Yeah, Steve, I understand which of the trees have died?
The trees that had died were a oak that was moved to low and that was replaced. That one, this one right here. And I believe one of these 4 cedars, the red dots there, died as well this past summer, and they have been replaced. Okay.
Okay, so there were 10 Shannon trees, I believe, or 11?
I think there were more like, let me think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, or 15 altogether.
Yeah, but the ones we were concerned about were the ones at the top of the bank.
Yes, so there are 3, 6, 9, 11 at the top of the bank. Yep. That's correct.
And one is still there, I believe.
Actually, there are 2 maples that are still there.
Okay.
And then over at the left-hand side, there is another maple that's still there. Okay, so there are 3 of them still there.
All right. So what you've done is in accordance with the conditions that we set. All right.
Okay.
Part of the NOI.
And the question was, where are all the trees and where have they gone? And the little arrows show where they've gone.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Good. If we can go down to the next figure, the next question that was asked was, what are the locations of the black locust to be removed from phase 3, area 2? And if we could just go down 1, Jeff, we can show those very easily.
Oh, sorry, I was getting back to Marika. Yep.
Certainly.
Let me see here.
Certainly.
Sure, go ahead.
And what we did was, these are general locations, but we measured diameter breast height of each tree. Okay, so they're general locations. So there are some living black locusts and some dead black locusts in here. And in fact, we're going to be asking later to decrease the seed bank because the black locusts have showed up in area 1. I took out, the day I visited, I think it was actually the September 22nd, Mariki and I took out about a half a dozen seedlings of the black locust, and those were the seeds from last fall. And they were around 4 to 6 inches tall at the time that we pulled them in September, just to let you know.
Okay.
So there are some dead trees.
That was in area 1, Steve?
Yes, that was in area 1. You call area 1. Let me see. It was east of the stairs going down. Okay. I don't know.
So that was phase 1.
Phase 2, perhaps.
Yeah, 2.
Okay.
Phase 2. Yeah. They ended up there. Yeah, that's all right. That's right. Okay. So the area to the west of the steps is phase 3. The area to the east of the steps is phase 2. And I need to comment on the success of phase 2. It's looking great. There are some volunteer plants, some asters, and some goldenrods that have come in as well. So I'm very happy with that. And in fact, Todd is very proud of his success, particularly through the summer. This drought has been very difficult on some trees. So Jeff, can we go down 1? Excellent. So there's the phase 3 area 2, and those are the trees, the black locusts that are there. Okay, and just generally, that was a question. And then if you go down another one, Jeff, figure 3, and these are the plants that are proposed to be planted there. The pitch pine weren't included until about a month ago, and we found pitch pine as inside the Cohasset Conservation Guidelines for Plant Selection in Wetlands on the coastal banks. So I was very happy to see that because there are pitch pines in the area. And in fact, there's one next door as well, which is a good thing. So there are some tables that show the work in this little report, the sequence of the work, and also work to be done in the future. In the past couple of days, I've had a chance to take a look at and listen to part of your meetings about 589 Jerusalem Road. And it's clear to me as a professional wetland scientist that the work on the coastal bank has exceeded the RDA threshold. So I don't believe it should continue with an RDA. It appears that there was, over the past year and a half, there's been some either miscommunication or misinterpretation or both that's occurred, so that it appears that we need to go to an ecological restoration notice of intent, as well as a variance request from the commission. And so we would like to request that the commission make a determination for, I would guess, a +1 determination on the form 2, determination of
You're talking
applicability.
about a positive determination?
A +1, that's correct. Okay. And +1 is described, and I'll read it to you. Area described on the referred plans is an area subject to protection under the Act. Removing, filling, dredging, or altering, which is what we're in, the area requires a notice of intent. Okay. So if you did make a positive determination, we can then take the next step of filing a Form 3A, an ecological restoration notice of intent. In my opinion, that's the best way to go with this kind of project. I see Mr. McFarlane has a comment.
No comment at this time.
Okay. Great. So we would love you to take a vote.
Let me ask you a question, Steve, before you go on. You're calling an ecological NOI. In my study of the Cohasset wetland regulations, I don't see any chapter referring to an ecological restoration notice of intent. What is that exactly?
That is Form 3A. It's a DEP form that just came out about 4 or 5 years ago. And it's a 20-page form, and it has a lot of questions in it with regard to the details of the ecological restoration project. I'm sorry I don't have one right here to show you, but it's a much more detailed form than the RDA and much more detailed form than the notice of intent. And it also has to be noticed and published in the Environmental Monitor, which comes out twice a month as well. Excuse me, I'm just going.
Jeff, are you familiar with the
Wet my whistle.
ecological restoration NOI?
Yeah, that was the last project that Howard Gleason Road. That was what they filed it under also, an ecological restoration project.
It was created just so we could get rid of invasive species inside resource areas. That's what really, particularly for the Nature Conservancy, which is doing some very large projects out in the western part of the state.
Yeah.
And so they actually were the impetus to create this form. And I'm very happy for it because there's been a lot of good work, particularly along streams and the coast with regard to projects that couldn't be permitted beforehand.
Okay. That's all looking to the future. Steve, you'll be finishing up?
That's what I'd like to stop with right now. Yes, please. And then I've got a couple more comments once you take a vote.
Okay. We'll hold off on the vote for a second. Jeff, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I think, I think that's a great idea. This originally started out as an RDA because it was, when Marika first came to me, it seemed like a pretty straightforward vegetation project, but it's evolved into much more than that. And I'm glad you brought that up, Steve. I'm glad you're proposing this. I think it actually is a good idea.
It's actually the only way that the commission can approve a project like this. I've done the research.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I hadn't done it beforehand, but something that both Mr. Eisenhower said and Jeff said, and Todd Breitenstein said in some of the meetings, they indicated that this was probably the right way to go. And as I see it, in reading your regs and the 310 CMR, the Wetlands Protection Act, it's the only way that this commission actually can permit this type of project working on a coastal bank. Now, realize that this coastal bank does not supply any material to a coastal beach. It's a really interesting coastal bank. It only prevents stormwater from going inland. So coastal banks have two functions, and it has one of the two functions. Yeah. It's a really interesting coastal bank. It's inland from the coastal beach.
Okay, let's, we last discussed this on May 14th.
Yes.
And we took a decision and voted that no work would be done in phase 3, area 3 and area 2 until next year, May of next year. We wanted to give that area a period of time and the whole area a period of time, whereby the current work that had been accomplished had been allowed to mature to see the success. So it was decided we would stop and we would not venture off into areas 2 and area 3 of phase 3. I understand that the work has been done in area 2 in contravention of the decision that we took. Is that correct?
I don't know that.
Kind of yes or no, Steve.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry. I do not know if all of the work that was presented to you was done in area 2.
But it was decided that there'll be no work done in phase 3, area 2 and area 3, all right, until this time, all right, next year, or excuse me, May of 2021. Jeff, could we see the photos for a second that I gave you? Which is
Yeah, just give me a second to find them again.
okay. And one of the photos is the status back in May of the area 2 and area 3 of phase 3, which is the left side. And the other is a current photograph. And there appears to be a lot less shrub and leaf material from trees in this period of 4 months, which very much surprised me because I expected to walk down there and see no change whatsoever, because that's what we had agreed to. All right, those were the conditions that we set. And Jeff's in the process of getting some photographs together so you can see what I'm talking about.
Was it this one you wanted, Eric?
No, it wasn't. No, there was another one, Jeff. There was another one.
This one?
Same photograph.
No, it's different, I think.
Nope.
That's the bank.
That's not the photo.
Was it the one with
You're
the?
not you're not sharing. You gotta reshare.
Hold on. Can you guys see this picture or no?
Yes, but it's the first
We can
picture.
see it, but these aren't where this is not the photo. Yeah.
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me
These are
find
not
it.
the photos I sent Jeff.
Hold on, I'm looking. Sorry.
Okay, there are two photos, and maybe Jeff will find them, maybe he won't. One was done in May of this year that showed a tremendous amount of leafy growth in the two areas we're talking about. The other was taken currently, and I would say there's probably been about a 60 or 70% reduction in the amount of foliage in the area, which indicates to me that the people have been in there cutting away. And my question is, why has this happened? And I'm looking for someone to give me an answer.
I don't have an answer for you, Eric. Mariki? You need to unmute yourself.
Good evening.
Hi, everyone.
There you go.
There I am. So I think what we want to start out with is to say that black locust is an invasive tree and is prohibited in Massachusetts. So what you're referring to, Eric, is a reduction in invasive species, right?
No.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
You asked me to explain.
You were at the meeting.
You asked me to explain, Eric. Let me explain.
Let me just explain. It's
No.
not
No,
talking.
don't interrupt me when I'm in the middle of explaining myself, please. Please.
Explain the issue.
Yeah.
Was there work done in area 2 and area 3?
No, but I am going to explain
After we agreed no work should be done.
allow me to do it. So black locust, so everybody knows, has sharp thorns and is poisonous to both humans and animals. So these trees are not native to our area and they're not very well equipped to handle the conditions on our bank, right? They're susceptible to frost and cold damage. So we're talking about the black locust. They have weak branch structure and the branches break very easily. This is all easily findable on the Google, right? And making it even harder for them is that they're mostly covered by bittersweet. So we have trees on a bank that are not supposed to be there, that are being weakened by bittersweet, and the conditions on the bank are very harsh. Now, over time, things change. This is not a situation that will not change. We get storms, the tops get blown out, branches get blown off. So at the end of the day, it's going to look different today than it did a year ago. And it's very unfair to hold me accountable to that.
I'm talking about four,
On top of
America, I'm
that,
talking about
on
four,
top of that, no,
4
on
months,
top of that,
4
these,
months.
on
this
top of
summer.
that, I have discussed with Jeff, can we please remove the branches and anything hanging into the yard? These trees have thorny branches. These trees are poisonous. I cannot have children coming into my yard, grabbing branches with thorns, starting fights, dogs running around there. The branches, and Jeff has seen it, sometimes you just touch them and they fall down. I can't have that happen. So we cleaned up everything hanging into the yard. Yes, we did. Another thing that has happened is on the bottom of the bank, there was a big stump and some sprouts growing out. That complete dome that it became, because it was completely overgrown by bittersweet, has died. Now it's my belief that that was the mother tree, and that has actually led to the decline of a few trees around it. Some have fell over, some are still there, some the top have blown off. And I did take one out. And I told Jeff, and I was very upset after the last meeting, and I mitigated it. I stood there with Jeff. I said, took the one out, and I put 2 peach plum in, 2 northern bayberries, and an Easter red cedar. And that's what I did. So yes, branches have been removed for safety reasons, overhanging the yard. We're not talking about a nice tree. We're talking about an invasive tree with thorns that's poisonous to all animals and humans. And you're telling me, oh, we need to leave that all alone and we just have to roll around in it. We can't. So I've worked my ass off for the last year and a half to try and make the best and work with the commission. This is my 6th hearing, right, to talk about this. We were directed by the commission all the way from the start to start an RDA. Now it's the understanding that should have not been done. I'm understanding of all that. We're learning, we're working through it. I'm happy to work through it. But I've been giving and giving to the bank and the resource area. And what I get in return is always an attitude of hostility. And it's just not fair. It doesn't represent how we have been trying to restore the bank or the good we've been trying to do. And that's what I would like to say.
Jeff, America is alleging you've been part of the contravening of the agreement that we had back in May not to perform any work
One zone.
in areas 2 and 3. All right. That's what she's saying. And you had the option of bringing it to us. We've met in the meantime and discussing it. We haven't discussed it. I'm very surprised that there was any work on in areas 2 and 3. That is a photograph we had in May of this year. The next photograph, Jeff.
Well, actually, while we have this one up, this is what she was talking about, was cutting this stuff out that's hanging over the yard. And I said, yes, go ahead and cut that stuff that's hanging over the yard.
Could you go to the next photograph, please, Jeff?
Sure. I got to do this again. Hold on a second.
While he's looking at that, I'm sorry, but I need to understand from the commission why you are so adamant about against taking the invasive.
This is the situation now. All right. We had an agreement. It was taken in public. The Conservation Commission voted on it. 4-1-1, I think. All right. Back on May 14th. Not to do any work in this area. And we have procedures of Jeff coming to the commission. If the owner wants to contravene or overturn our decisions, that's fine. But I've heard nothing about this. And this represents to me about probably 60 to 70% of the foliage that was there was cut out. Now, I don't know how we're expected to do our job when people who want to do what they want just go and start cutting things up. That's not how the Conservation Commission is run. That's not what we expect from the people we're collaborating with.
Eric,
Quiet.
I'm really
talking.
sorry.
Marika, I'm talking. Now, our job is to protect the wetlands. We don't do this because we like to do it. We felt it was necessary to control this project, and we as a group decided that we're not going to do any work in this area. And you decided you're going to do work in the area. Well, that's fine. All right.
You totally ignore, Eric. You're ignoring that a lot of these trees died or were damaged in storms.
Expect our
It's
support.
not true. It's just not true.
The proper procedures for managing this project. Period.
As a scientist, I don't see a lot of wildlife habitat value or functions on the coastal bank as it exists presently in phase 3.
Steve, that's not the issue. No one's arguing with that. No one's arguing about whether the project is justified or not. There were people on this commission, professional people, who's in their best, the best thought processes and consideration before we pushed off to continue the clearing of the bank and the replanting, wanted to make sure that what had been done so far was enduring, it was going to last, and it was going to be good effect. So we decided, and we voted in favor of it, that we would wait until May of next year. Let the existing areas go through the nor'easters, the winter, make sure that everything stays in place, and then we would approach the others and would move on with the others. That was our plan, and we all agreed to it. We don't expect that the people we're working with will just decide to go and contravene that and do whatever they want without discussing with the commission a change in plan or anything else. And that's what's happened here, okay?
May I ask?
Why are we wasting our time if people don't abide by the rules and the procedures that we have? That's it.
May I ask why May? May is already too
It was a
late.
year after the time when we met. Make it April, Steve, okay? We wanted to make sure that the work that had been done, which I question in a lot of cases, was enduring. That's all. That was our group consensus. And I still stand by that. And that's the reason we didn't want to have any further clearing done, whether it was good or bad or indifferent, so that the work would stop for a period of time. And that's what we're trying to do, all right? Aside from people going out and just deciding, well, I'm going to get my clippers out and my loppers and I'm going to dig things up and all that.
No, you're ignoring the fact.
Take place, which is to talk to the agent who would bring it back to the Conservation Commission and we would revise our plan. That was never done.
Eric, you're
I'm tired of
ignoring the fact these trees are not made for those conditions. When it storms, they break. It just doesn't work. So it's super unfair to now say that I caused the breakage, I caused these trees to die down there. I didn't. It's nature. Just like Jay said all the way beginning a year and a half ago, things die, things grow. It's just how it is. Yes, I took away what hung into the yard. And I took away one dead tree. I have a picture that it was dead.
You saw the 70%, 70% reduction in the foliage. That was not an occasional branch that happened to fall. Come on. We're adults. We know what's going on.
There is a lot that died.
You've been hell-bent on getting rid of those trees.
Did you see? But you let us look at things, but a lot of them died. There's nothing I can do about that.
That 4-month period? Come on.
4 months. It's not a 4-month period. It's not that picture. That's not in a 4-month period. A lot of these trees never came out of the winter.
Photograph
They
was
never
taken
did.
in May. The other photograph was taken in September. You tell me, 5 months?
Are you sure that first was in May of this year?
They were the
I'm
photographs.
not sure about that. Can you
They
check
were the
that?
photographs that were presented by Todd.
Eric, can I say something?
Who's this?
This is James.
Yeah, James, go ahead.
So, I mean, I understand your point about, work being done in this area, and that at that last meeting, it was decided that nothing was going to be done. And I was at the site visit. I thought everything that was done looked very healthy and it was done very well. And in the very beginning, the intent was to approach this in phases as quickly as they could. And they were going to prove that they were going to get down there and clear it out and mitigate all of the invasives and plant things that were native and prove to the commission it was going to be done right so that you would allow them to move forward with the next section. And they went down there and they did it. They did exactly what they said they were going to do. And then they moved on to a new area. And they've come back in front of the commission over and over and over again. And I think this nonsense is part of the reason why you have so many people that are going and just clear cutting stuff in town, because they don't want to come in front of the commission and do this. Because these people have now been in front of the commission at least, 7 or 8 times? And the intent has always been to continue doing the exact same thing, moving down the bank. I don't understand why it has been the driest summer ever. I have irrigation at my house in a well and my plants look horrible. That bank looked fantastic considering the conditions. And I don't understand why all of a sudden this is coming to a screeching halt and they're being told they can't touch the rest of the bank when they have made good on every single promise they've made and put all that work in the beginning. And also, I recall at the meeting, everyone else seemed to be, not crazy about the work on the bank, but more inclined to approve it and let them continue. And your comments were, if Steve Ivis got involved, he was somebody that you respected and you would be inclined to agree with his professional opinion. Now Steve Ivis is involved and you're disagreeing. And we've had another 2 meetings since. I don't understand why this has been. Why is this being held up?
James, I certainly respect Steve a lot, that's for sure. But it wasn't my decision back in May to hold off and sit and see how the existing work weathered the nor'easters and winter and everything else. Life is more than one summer of sprinklers keeping plants green. We wanted to see how this was enduring. There was questions on the part of the commissioners, all right, that are here tonight that were questioning how the endurance and the longevity of the work we done. And we wanted to see it go through a growing season before we continue to do the rest. That's the reason, James. And you were here for the meeting, and I'm sure you remember that discussion right now. Or
I do.
Minutes,
I
okay?
do.
And that's exactly what happened.
But I've also seen projects that are far bigger than this move forward without there being any drawn out. We want to see how this small 10 by 10 area does for the next year before we're going to let you plant the rest of the area.
But you do understand, it was the decision of the commission, not any one person. We took it as a group, and the overwhelming majority of the people voted in favor of that action. That's all. And if people disagree with it, that's fine. We can make changes to these decisions, but we have to go through the proper process. We have hearings. We meet every 2 weeks. So there's no reason why something's just left unattended to.
I feel these people have done the right thing. They've come in front of the commission, meeting after meeting after meeting. They're getting people involved. They're having site visits. I mean, they've done all the right things, and they've done exactly what they said they were going to do. And I think that the commission should be more lenient and understanding and not obstructive. And I feel like things have kind of crossed the line, and we need to get back in check and make sure that we're not the commission that people are trying to avoid because we're unreasonable.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Rosebach makes a very good point. Where is the harm to the resource? I have not seen any harm to the resource to date. This has been going on for a year and a half. There's no harm to the resource. I would ask the commission to vote to allow continued work on the resource. This is all being done by hand. There's no large machinery. There's nothing that's affecting the ground surface at all. It's remaining just perfectly fine. We have not seen any large gullies develop or anything else like that.
Steve, it's barely rained in the last 4 months.
That's true. But some of the
And
work
and all the plants, I've seen the watering. The plants are extensively watered by the owners, which is very good. It keeps them alive. But that doesn't mean that it's an enduring landscaping effort.
All landscaping requires maintenance. It's a 3D puzzle is what it is. Just like a lawn requires mowing every week or two, if it's properly maintained. This 3D landscaping requires even more maintenance. This is a 10-year project for these people. They've committed to a 10-year project because those black locusts will come up for at least 10 years. I worked with one in Tewksbury on my parents' property. As an example, we've got it back to one 50-foot tree that looks just like a vase right now. And all the years that it's self-pruned and branches dropped, we told all the grandchildren never to walk under that tree because it would drop at any time. Not only that, the root sprouts still are coming up 10 years after we took everything else from around it out. So it's a
Dave,
commitment that these people are making. Sorry?
Could you get to your point, please? Where are we going?
My point is that these people aren't people who will just have it done once and walk away. They are there every single day working on the site, landscaping.
I don't think anybody has questioned the endurance and the hard work of the people who live at 589. No one's ever questioned that.
And my point is, they will ensure that there will be no effect on the bank itself, the coastal bank resource. That's the point. They are protecting the coastal bank resource.
Steve, thank you very much.
Better
commissioners. Yeah, commissioners, could we get some other comments here, please, from other people? Chris?
Well, I think that this hearing, which is a, in a way, a continuation of a previous hearing. James, I think it's absolutely important that when guidelines are set, that they're followed. Now, having said that, that's kind of a done issue. The question now is, does this applicant want to file a restoration? What is it? A restoration
notice of
NOI. I mean, if that's, that's if that, but that's not what's been filed to date, correct?
No,
yes, that's correct,
RDA.
because of the
Okay,
guidance from the commission.
RDA.
Okay, well, I mean, if I guess if they want to file one, that's fine. I mean, we're not going to turn this RDA into a restoration NOI. If you want to do that, then you should do that. But that's not that, whether it was a mistake on the part of the Conservation Commission or not. This first came in front of us as an RDA. It was presented to us in a way that we allowed phase one, and then it came back and we allowed phase two, and then we came came back and we allowed phase 3,
Area
part
one.
1. And that's where it's gone to. So, I mean, that's fine. I think that if you want to go and issue or apply for a restoration RDA, NOI, feel free.
My question is, how can the commission, there are no orders in this RDA. There are only agreements. And are the agreements that you made in a meeting legal at all? That's my question. I've been working at this 35 years and I've never seen agreements like that with an RDA. Never seen it. Are the agreements that you made legal? I don't know. I can't answer the question.
I can't answer
Steve,
that.
if the applicant wants to hire a lawyer, I suppose they can contest it. They happen to be the agreement of the Conservation Commission, and that's something that we're obligated to live up to. We're open. We can change things. We can do what you want. We can file a positive determination, which is a possibility. But stop work on this RDA, put together your ecological NOI, and we'll review it accordingly. But work stops is unauthorized along the way because there's no variance. There's no authorization to work on that route. So I'm not sure if that's a good solution. Other people, commissioners, please, would like to hear what you have to say.
Well, go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to say that I think, Steve's proposal is really the only option now. I mean, obviously, I don't believe the commission is going to vote to allow any further work. So the only option is a positive determination.
Yeah.
That would halt all work. No further work could be allowed until there's an order of conditions issued under the ecological restoration proposal.
Which I assume will be coming shortly, I would guess.
I would imagine.
If that's the route that the applicant, the owner would like to follow. It's not up to Steve. All right. It's up to the owner or the owners of 589.
I'm looking back at my notes from May and I wrote, I applaud their efforts. They are moving everything by hand. I still feel like that. I feel like they've really tried. This was a project they did not welcome. It came from the builder and they are trying to rectify it. I'm concerned about the tone always on 589. I think, I don't think they deserve the tone that we often seems to be communicated to them for doing so much, trying to do the right thing. At the close of the last meeting, they were to not do any more planting in area 2 or 3. I had that. But however, if you are living in this property and you do have trees with pointy things falling onto your animals and children, I mean, that is a concern. You probably would do the same thing and clean it up. I'm not sure if they cleaned it up or did all those trees fall down. I'm not quite sure, but I want them to move forward with this. I think they deserve to finish this project and complete this. They want to do the right thing and we can continue to monitor the work. Maybe the next step is just follow this ecological NOI form. But I think if I was in that property and those prickly things fell down, I might do some work myself. So just stating that.
I'd like to add that I was actually very impressed with the work that was done. I understand that the intent is good, and I hope we can all reinforce that. I think what becomes difficult as a commission that Eric is probably responding to is, so we have had, and even in this meeting alone, if you were here earlier, so many projects that go on without following the appropriate procedures. And when they do so, most of them have pretty bad consequences intended or unintended. I do believe in this case, not following the procedure didn't necessarily result in a consequence that was necessarily a bad one. But I think that that's ultimately, and I think that's what I'm hearing from you, Marika, like, I mean, why are we so upset about this? And I do understand that, because I think that your work and your intention is really good. But we've had so many recent and long-term, from my experience in my short time here, misunderstandings about what needs to get approved and what doesn't, and how we can help guide that better as a commission. I think I'd love to look, a little more into, because I don't think that people do what they want or should, are just moving forward because it's so difficult to come to the commission. I think there's sometimes confusion. And, I think the more communication, the better. I would love to see you propose this in a different manner, and as you proposed, Steve, as a NOI. And I just wanted to speak to that, because I do think that we do want to make sure people are following the right procedures that we have to enforce, and to the bylaws that we have to research and make sure that we're following under the appropriate manner. And it's not always perfect, especially when the intentions are good.
Mr. Ives, I'd like to just make one other point. One of the reasons that this project has dragged on to the extent it has is because the bank, the coastal bank, which is a man-made bank at this point, it's not a pristine coastal bank. It offers a very harsh condition for whatever's going to grow there. As you know, black locusts, they tend to be early colonizers. They can grow in very shallow soils. They can grow in very nutrient poor soils, which isn't necessarily the case for some of these other plants that are being planted. I think that as part of a restoration NOI, I think it's important that not only is the plant material important as to what is proposed, I think also the planting medium and its volume is important. This bank, I mean, I think it's very unlikely that in most situations that a real restoration on a bank like this would not include massive importing of soils and creating of zones that would more or less guarantee success of plant material. And because this was always presented to us as kind of filling in cracks and crevices, there was never any kind of any kind of assurance that over time that this landscape would survive. And that was the reason that I personally expressed concern for how much work would be done over a certain period of time. Because what I didn't want to see is I didn't want to see the entire thing done and then the entire thing fail. So I think this, I'm just telling you this because you've come on the project later, and I think it's really important that as part of this restoration, that more than just sticking plants in crevices with some soil of some unknown volume is proposed to us. I think it's important that we, or I'll speak for myself, that as a commissioner, that I feel comfortable that this is going to actually, that it's not just a reestablishment of planting that's good on the day it's planted, but that it's viable in the long term.
And how can we demonstrate that to you? That's my question to you. How can we demonstrate that?
Well, to be honest, I think that you would, I think it would be a much, perhaps the plan is actually based on areas that you know can actually have you know, where plants can actually be planted. Perhaps every plant gets staked and we view the site as kind of a living document of what is going to be planted. But if you know, if I saw a you know, an Atlantic red cedar planted in a crevice which can only support 2 cubic feet of soil, I'm skeptical whether or not that plant is viable in a long term. So I think you know, your diagram, and I appreciate the fact you called it a diagram, because it is a diagram and not a plan.
That's correct.
I think that has to be translated then into kind of an on the ground plan that's going to show that something has, you know, potential to actually survive.
Don't you think that things have survived very well already that have been planted on the bank itself? Let me ask you that.
I think for the short period that they've been there, yes, I do think they've done well.
Okay. Okay. And what would you like to see in a plan? Do you want to see a grid with survey?
No. What I'm saying is probably the most realistic way of doing this would be to actually, you know, flag out the real locations in the field, and then and you know, invite us back down to say, you know, I was right or I was wrong. I can't fit in 22 Arctostaphylos. I can only fit in 21 because I don't have 22 crevices, and it actually becomes something that we can look at on the ground and feel comfortable about.
My goodness, that's really a lot of micromanaging.
Well,
but that's fine.
If you would prefer to do a grid and show me where every rock is out there and how big the soil volume is, you could do that on paper if you'd prefer.
My goodness. Seems like a lot of work for not much gain, to me at least, but we can certainly discuss it. I will discuss it with my client.
Could you say, when you say not much gain, what are you suggesting that we're not gaining?
I'm not sure that the work necessary to do all that would be anything different from what we do on site. My little diagram was only an example of where we put plants. When I do a planting scheme, I basically do a diagram, and then on site we choose locations for the plants. Each plant goes in a different location. I will actually place them for the planters. Okay. I don't do it ahead of time. We never do it ahead of time.
So, but would you plant a swamp white oak in a crevice in rocks, which could only afford it, say, 3 cubic feet of soil?
No, absolutely not. I'd plant I'd plant a smaller shrub in that area.
Okay.
That's all. But you have to know what's there in order to figure out what to plant. That's what you're saying is what every farmer does. Every farmer, I went to at the National Academy of Sciences, 1996. I sat next to an Iowa farmer, and the gentleman who was doing the presentation was, I'm sorry, I've forgotten his name, but you would recognize the name. It was an ecological engineer type. And he turned to me during a break and said, "Ecological engineer, that's just a farmer looking at his land every single day." Well, that's what we do before we plant. We look at the land and try to understand what's there. You never do anything but.
Steve, I actually think we're quite close together here. All right. we're looking to the future. We're focusing not on the past. We want to see the good results of the past. We all want this project to be successful, all right? I think those people that I've talked to and I've seen are all in favor of issuing a positive determination for this RDA, which means we stop work and we begin writing an NOI called an Ecological Restoration NOI, which will be submitted to this commission as soon as possible, which will review. It'll include what your specifications for planting and soil, and myself and Chris and everyone else on the committee will have a chance to review it, and we'll get going with the NOI in a positive way, and we'll issue a variance, and the whole project's moving along, all right? But that means that the RDA will be stopped. Work will discontinue until the NOI is completed. That's how the game is played here. Those are the rules, all right? Is there anyone who has any thoughts on that? Because that's what Steve's proposing, and I think, you know, issuing a positive determination is probably something at this stage which we have to do, all right? Which would stop the work on the RDA, because we need to recoup ourselves and put our thoughts together for the future. So, Chris, anybody else thoughts on that? Marianne.
I was just
You're
having
on.
another thought. That's what I was
Okay, fine. Kathleen, we haven't heard anything from you yet. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I think the issue of seeing how everything takes over time is important. To see how it weathers a winter, et cetera. I think that's important. And that should definitely be part of the whole process. That's my biggest thing with this.
Okay. I mean, personally, I've spent quite a bit of time walking around. And Steve, I know you know what you're doing and you've had a lot of history. I would think that a good number of the stones and the rocks in place are certainly going to move the moment we have a big nor'easter. They'll become dislodged and the whole thing will become a bit perilous at that point. That's my view. And it has to be recouped, has to be fixed, stabilized again. And that's all part of making this thing grow and dealing with in the future. But, you know, we put together the ecological NOI. We'll have the steps, we'll have the authority and the procedures. I think all of us will be able to agree to it. And we'll have a plan for the future that's got a broad base of consensus. And I think the owner at that stage will be happy with where we're going in the next few steps. All right. Anybody have any comments or second thoughts or feel like we're going in the wrong direction? America, you want to give us your thoughts at this stage?
No, I'm happy. I'm very happy to hear the remarks. A lot of effort has gone in, and it just really nice to hear. For I was going to say for change, but that's all a negative. No, it's just really nice to hear. I'm very happy with that. I'm happy we have a path forward. I wrote down, I didn't make many notes, but the sentence I did write down is what you just said, Eric, is looking to the future. I really do hope we can finalize this massive transformation, looking to the future and later all looking back to the amazing work that we've all managed to do and transform a little bit of Cohasset back to what it more should be like. So it makes me very happy. Thank you, Eric.
I don't know of any commissioner who wants this project to do anything other than be a complete success. How we get there, the rules of the road along the way, maybe we dispute those, but that's all part of living in a sort of a regulated environment. And I'll make a motion in a second to move on with the NOI. I'd like to hear from anybody else who has anything else to say, all right? And if not, I think we'll get ahead with the motion and we'll conclude this. Anybody? Further comments?
Yeah, Eric, I just want to mention that there are no comments in the Q&A from the public. But then again, I was informed that that feature wasn't working properly anyhow, but I just, for the record, just wanted to
You
mention
found
that.
out about that. Do you have anybody in quotes, the public, who's got a telephone number you don't recognize?
No.
That's a way of finding if people are out there, aren't there, Jeff, or is it not work?
Yeah, no. There's a few people here, but there's no hands raised or anything.
Okay. So Eric Eisenhower, I'd like to make a motion that we.
Now there is a hand raised by Karen Murphy.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Could we hear her, Jeff?
Yeah, hold on a second.
Or promoter or whatever you do?
Yep.
Ms. Murphy? Ah, there you are. Ms. Murphy, would love to hear from you. I see that you're muted.
Oh, no, I was playing around with the technology, and I just want to thank everyone for the discussion tonight. And that was it. So.
Well, thank you very much.
No, I appreciate, and I truly believe in the work that we're doing in support of conservation and the bank and just the environment. We love where we live, and we want to make it the most beautiful place ever. So thank you.
Thank you for those kind words. We appreciate it. Okay, I'd like to make a motion then. Make the motion that we issue a positive determination for, I've lost a piece of paper, RDA 19-11 for 589 Jerusalem Road. And I understand that would cancel the work under the current RDA, and we leave it up to the applicant and her good works to issue an NOI, an ecological restoration NOI, which we can expect when? We'd like to have a date so we can put on the schedule. So we don't want these things just to drift along. We want to have some follow up on that.
Well, I don't think we can really mandate when they will.
We can ask them, can't we?
Well, they can give us an idea, but it's really up to them when they want to submit the proposal.
Am I twisting your arm, Steve?
Well, you can't twist my arm because it's my client that makes the decision. Okay, so I'm out of that. My client will tell me if I'm first hired for the project, and then I'll go from there.
Okay, we'll leave it without a date, but we're waiting for the NOI, the ecological restoration NOI, to be submitted to us, and we'll deal with it and follow up on this great project.
As a point of information, Jeff, excuse me for a moment. As a point of information, the first thing we must do is actually publish it in the Environmental Monitor before you have it in your hands. It's just a paragraph that's published, but that has to be published and for a date certain when it will be heard by the Conservation Commission. Okay, just to let you know what the process is. Okay.
Okay.
I just wanted to note too that it's a +1 determination.
Right. +1 determination. Yes.
So I'll second that, and then we have to vote, right?
Let's vote on it, on the proposal. Thank you, Chris. Kathy Berrigan.
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Patricia Grady.
All right, have to get to my mute. Patricia Grady, aye.
You're still there?
I'm here, yes.
Chris McFarland.
Chris McFarlane, aye.
James Rosebach.
James Rosebach, aye.
Marianne Weatherald.
Marianne Weatherald, aye.
Eric Eisenhower, aye. That is a vote of 6-0 in favor, and the motion passes. So we look forward to having a great future on this project. Thank you very much for everyone for attending tonight. And we just have a few more pieces of business, all right? What time is it?
Thank you all. Night.
Thank you. It's 10:15. We'll try and make it fast, okay? Jeff, you have the, next on the agenda is the agent wet ink signature. Maybe you could explain that quickly and we can take a vote.
All right, so I think everybody remembers in the spring, since we were meeting virtually here on Zoom, that the commissioners weren't present to sign the documents necessary. So the commission voted to allow me to sign for the commission on their behalf electronically. So what's come up since then is that the land court, for example, won't accept documents that are signed electronically. They have to be signed in ink. So I asked Karis again, what should we do here? Can I make this motion to sign in the legal term wet ink? So she said yes. So basically, let me see if I can put it up here. Give me 1 second. So this is the actual, would be the new proposal. It's a vote authorizing electronic or wet ink signatures of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. It's basically stating, I'll actually read the motion because it will have to be read anyhow. So let me just read the motion. Then everybody, I think, will have a better understanding. So the motion is, the Cohasset Conservation Commission recognizes and accepts the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 110G, which is electronic signatures being accepted by registries and courts. Electronic signatures and commission members will henceforth execute documents either with electronic signatures or with wet ink signatures, and that both will carry the same legal weight and effect. Further, the commission authorizes the Conservation Commission agent to sign commission documents electronically or in wet ink on behalf of individual conservation members. Conservation documents are defined only as those documents which the commission voted to issue and sign at a public meeting, so long as the order, I'll explain that in a second, referenced above remains in force and effect. This vote supersedes the vote taken on May 14th, 2020 and recorded in book 37900 and page 346 at the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds. So the order that's referred to here is Governor Charlie Baker's declaration of state of emergency, the COVID-19 pandemic. The previous order, the previous motion, which was voted in favor, would allow me to sign electronically, has to be recorded at the registry. So that's what's referring to here, the date it was voted and the book and page where I recorded it. So this new motion here would allow me to continue to sign documents electronically, but also in wet ink. So that's what this is all about.
Jeff, any other implications that we should know about, or is it pretty straightforward?
No, this is the exact same thing that was voted on May 14th, except with the addition of wet ink signatures, allowing me to sign electronically and with a pen. I know it's kind of, it's all the legal wording that we have to go through this again. So,
Commissioners, anything you'd like to discuss on this, or can we get on with the vote? Okay, let's have the vote. I don't think we need a motion here. It's a straight vote. Eric Eisenhower votes in favor. Aye. Kathy Berrigan?
Aye.
Patricia Grady?
Patricia Grady, aye.
Chris McFarlane?
Chris McFarlane, aye.
James Rosebach?
James Rosebach, aye.
Marianne Weatherald?
Marianne Weatherald, aye.
That's 6-0 in favor, and it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving along very quickly, I'm not sure what else we have to do, other than fact, I'd like to have a few moments set aside for our 2 new members, and I'd like to get to know them a bit better. That's Heather and Tom. Some of you know them, others don't. I don't know them very well at all. And I'd like to, on behalf of the commission, welcome both of you as associates. We look forward to you not just attending, but also making comments. We'd like to certainly hear your views. Just because you're an associate for the time being doesn't mean that you're reviews are inconsequential. We certainly would like to hear them. But maybe you can tell us quickly something about yourselves and your background, so you're more than just a face on a computer screen. Heather, do you want to start first, please?
Sure. It's very nice to meet you all, virtually at least, and hopefully again in person in the future. Looking forward to serving on the board with all of you. My background and what led me to apply to serve on the commission. My background is in environmental engineering, and I also am an attorney for a construction company. So I worked in environmental engineering for a number of years before going to law school, and now do heavy civil projects. As an attorney, I still do some project management stuff for development projects for the company. So I've been before town boards, including Conservation Commission. So I've sat on the other side, but not on this side before. My husband and I moved to Cohasset June of last year. And, you know, I just started looking for opportunities to get involved in the town. I grew up in Pembroke, though haven't lived there since I was a kid. So generally familiar with the South Shore and looking forward to serving.
Welcome.
Wonderful.
Thank you for volunteering. Tom?
I'm a recently retired professional geologist. Most of my work in the last few years has been in Africa. It's interesting to work back here in the United States again. I spent a lot of time outside. I'm a field geologist. And that experience of 30 or more years, 40 years, working outside has given me a really deep appreciation of the ecological interactions in a lot of different environments around the planet. It's I've been here for about 10 years. I feel really privileged to have arrived on the Atlantic coast. I grew up on the West Coast, and it's taken me a long time to get here. I'm looking forward to paying attention to the issues that are involved here. And I want to say something about our meeting tonight. I was a little concerned about how some of the things went. I guess I'm going to have to learn how to roll with some of these punches. And I'll confess, I was a little uncomfortable about the last interaction.
Okay. Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Heather. Look forward to working with you, all right? Jeff, do you have any, if you don't mind, we're going to skip the minutes. It's getting late. We can do those next meeting, I think. There's nothing on there we have to deal with immediately?
That was what I was going to mention. Actually, Angela asked if we can be sure to approve the minutes this meeting because she's trying as hard as she can to get them in on a timely basis. So if we could just take another minute to approve those minutes, that'd be great.
I've read through them. I have one or two things where, you know, in terms of black oak instead of black locust, and I don't have them in front of me now, but I will forward them to Angela tomorrow. All right, Jeff?
Okay.
Anybody else have any comments on the minutes?
No.
Okay. All right. Do we vote on them, Jeff, or what?
Did she give you the? She should have sent you which the minutes were. I'm not sure which meeting minutes.
They are the minutes on 8:20, 9:03, and 9:17.
So if
and 5:14.
5:14, yes. 5:14 is on the website. Yep.
So I think
it's not on here though.
Okay. If nobody has any issue with those meetings and if the commission wants to approve them, I don't think we need to have a vote for each separate set of meetings. But if we can make a motion to approve those meetings, if you could just repeat the dates again, then
Okay.
I think that would be fine.
On the agenda, it's 8/20/20, 9/3/20, 9/17/20, and on the web, as Chris said, there is 5/14/20.
There's a hand raised in the.
Oh yeah, it's Angela.
Ooh,
I don't
where
think
is
she can.
I don't even see that.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
Angela, can you unmute yourself and tell us what's going on?
I don't think she has a,
You don't have a mic?
yeah,
Oh, bummer.
hold on.
Type into the comments.
Yeah, she put it in the Q&A box.
Jeff, I have one or two comments. I will call Angela tomorrow morning and pass those on to her, okay?
Hold on 1 second, I'm trying to call her. Sorry about this. I know it's late already.
I gave her my feedback already on those 3.
Thank you.
The problem is different people were in attendance at different meetings.
Yeah. But that's always the case, isn't it?
Yeah, she's not answering, so I don't
The only
know.
one we don't
Sorry.
have here tonight is Jay. What about Alex? If Alex, I assume we can approve them without Alex's approbation?
Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah, so it's only, it's going to be Jay, all right?
I think he already gave his feedback.
Yeah.
He and I gave feedback earlier this week.
Okay. Jeff, I suggest we vote them through, all right?
Yeah.
So at 5:14, everyone was in attendance except for Trish.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
So we're gonna roll call or just say,
I think we'll have a quick roll call. Jeff, a quick roll call?
All right, hold on a second. Hold on. Angela, hold on. She's saying that the minutes for the May 14th don't have to be approved yet because she had just done those, but the other ones, she needs to get approved.
Okay.
Right, there was
Right,
an
so
email.
all the ones we mentioned except the 14th, all right?
all right, so 9-3, I was not there, so I will not vote.
Okay. Kathy? Aye.
Aye.
Patricia?
Aye.
Chris? Except for the one you were going at? Chris?
I wasn't there, so I can't vote.
Yeah, but we're voting for all 3.
Okay.
So we'll vote yes for all the ones that you were at.
Oh, okay, then aye.
James Rosebach?
James Rosebach, aye.
Marianne Weatherald?
Marianne Weatherald, aye.
Okay, so except for Jay, everyone has voted positive for all of the minutes at the meetings that they were at. And those that attended are in the, listed on the top of the page, okay? Jeff?
Yes.
All right. Conservation agent update quickly, anything?
No.
And I have nothing, except I think our proper chairman is going to be back in 2 weeks' time, so. And he's got a good time away. Does anyone want to please make a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
So
moved. Second, anybody?
Second.
Those in favor say aye. Aye.
Marianne Weatherald, aye.
No one opposed. Thank you very much for tonight. All right. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Have a nice long weekend.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
And
Have a good
Tom,
night.
Tom, thank you for the article you sent out.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.